Chapter 3048. Zhen Hong and the Flaming Wolf Youth were not enemies. It was just fate that made them opponents. Even if the winner was decided, there was no enmity between them. The Flaming Wolf Youth looked up at her and said in a hoarse voice, "You won." Zhen Hong removed her berserk state and returned to normal. She landed not far in front of him. She looked at the Flaming Wolf Youth calmly and said, "You are also very strong. It is also an opportunity for you to break through on the spot in the arena. Although you lost to me, you still have a chance to fight for the 10th place." The Flaming Wolf Youth was stunned and smiled bitterly. "The 8 losers will fight for the only spot?" Zhen Hong said expressionlessly, "My benefactor taught me that to become a true expert, I have to go through many 1 in a million tests in my life. If you don't even dare to fight for the 1 in a million chance, you don't deserve to be an expert." The Flaming Wolf Youth was stunned again and immediately showed an ashamed expression. He nodded and said, "You are right. Thank you for your guidance. Also, help me thank your benefactor." After that, he struggled to stand up with his injuries. He bowed to Zhen Hong and turned to leave the arena. Although he was defeated and left the arena, his back was straight. His confidence and determination reappeared. Although the battle between Zhen Hong and the Flaming Wolf Youth could be said to be the most exciting and hot-blooded battle since the beginning of the ceremony, nearly 1 million God Clan people discussed excitedly for a long time. But soon, as one exciting battle after another played out, everyone's attention was diverted. The 6th battle. A white-haired youth named Yi Ningguang appeared. He was one of the 4 geniuses under Prince Lian that Ji Qianxing had paid attention to. This person was thin and wore black leather armor. He had short white hair and looked very capable. His face was cold and his aura was malicious. His eyes were as frightening as a poisonous snake's. After entering the arena, he stared coldly at the northern viewing platform and stared straight at Ji Qianxing. When Ji Qianxing flew into the arena, his lips curled into a sinister sneer. "Haha, my luck is quite good, much better than those 3 guys. The mission of sniping you will be completed by me in the end." Yi Ningguang said coldly and was quite proud. "Kid, do you know? It is your greatest honor to be seen as an opponent by the Emperor. As long as I defeat you in the arena, I will be rewarded by His Majesty with resources and treasures worth 1 billion. I really have to thank you." As he spoke, Yi Ningguang stretched out his hands. A black light flashed in his palms, and 2 black scimitars appeared. Ji Qianxing raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Your luck is indeed not bad. Among the 4 great lackeys, you are the first to be defeated by this monarch. Of course, a cannon fodder like you is not worthy to be this monarch's opponent. Being defeated by this monarch is also the most glorious experience of your life." His tone was relaxed and casual, without the slightest bit of bravado. He was just stating a fact. Yi Ningguang, on the other hand, was greatly humiliated. He furrowed his brows and his eyes flashed with murderous intent. "Brat, you're courting death." Ji Qianxing's lips curved in a cold smile, saying indifferently, "The matter of West Wind Town, even the prince did not tell you." During the battle at West Wind Town, he had severely injured the 5th prince and killed dozens of divine monarchs, including several divine monarchs. If Yi Ningguang knew about this matter, he would not be so confident at this moment. Sure enough, Yi Ningguang furrowed his brows and asked in confusion, "What West Wind Town? What did you do?" Ji Qianxing laughed involuntarily, looking at him with pity. "Little guy, you must have offended the prince." Yi Ningguang immediately denied. "How is that possible? I am loyal to the monarch." "Then why did he send you to your death?" Ji Qianxing sneered. Yi Ningguang could no longer suppress his anger and roared, "You talk too much nonsense, go die." As he roared, Yi Ningguang waved his black scimitars, turning into a cold black light that attacked Ji Qianxing. His speed was extremely fast like lightning. The divine ability he used was also very strange. It turned the entire arena into night, dark and cold, like a place of death. In addition, there were hundreds of death blades hidden in the darkness, ready to attack Ji Qianxing at any time. He was fully prepared and used his full strength right from the start. This divine ability was strange and mysterious, so powerful that it made people's hearts palpitate. Countless God Clan members in the square cried out in alarm, their faces filled with worry. The nobles and experts on the 4 viewing platforms also looked at Yi Ningguang in a new light. They stared at Ji Tianqing, waiting to see how he would deal with it. But everyone was disappointed. Ji Tianqing stood in place, not moving an inch. His expression was still indifferent as he slowly raised his right hand. He clenched his fist again, releasing golden light that condensed into a mountain-sized dragon-elephant phantom. Then he threw it out in a destructive manner. It was the same move as before, but more powerful and contained more nomological power. Although it was gorgeous, it was boring to watch it a second time. Boom! Crack! The next moment, the dragon-elephant divine fist hit the black light, creating an earth-shattering sound. Instantly, the entire arena was filled with invisible divine power and shook violently. The sky blue shield also shook violently, creating turbulent waves. Under countless shocked gazes, the black death aura that filled the arena instantly collapsed and dissipated. The black light that resembled a lightning bolt of death also exploded into fragments that filled the sky. Yi Ningguang's figure appeared, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He drew an arc in the air and smashed into the edge of the arena with a dull thud. He was severely injured with just one punch. He was unwilling to give up and wanted to get up and fight again. But he realized that his arms were broken, his legs were shattered, and his internal organs were shattered. Even the meridians and bones in his body were in a mess, broken and twisted inch by inch. After suffering such heavy injuries, his body was almost destroyed. Want to fight again? Impossible. Even if he went into seclusion to heal, it would take him at least 20 years to fully recover. No, Yi Ningguang couldn't accept such a blow. His eyes were red as he roared with grief and anger. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing covered 10 miles with a single step and appeared in front of him. He raised his right hand again and clenched it into a fist that emitted golden light. Yi Ningguang was terrified. His eyes were filled with fear and dread. His opponent's intention was clear. If he didn't admit defeat, he would have to take another punch. In his current state, he would be finished if he took another punch. Not only would his divine body be smashed, but his divine spark would also be severely damaged. By then, it wouldn't be something that could be recovered in a few decades. Before Ji Tianqing raised his fist, Yi Ningguang couldn't wait and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Stop! I admit defeat." He was afraid that everyone couldn't hear him. Ji Tianqing pretended not to hear him and crippled him with one punch. That would be a huge loss. Therefore, he shouted so loudly that it shook the sky. Ji Tianqing frowned and retracted his fist. He said with disdain, "Just admit defeat. Why are you shouting so loudly? It's indeed glorious to be defeated by me, right?" Translator, Hinyi Translations Editor, Hinyi Translations. Chapter 3049. Yi Ningguang was filled with grief and indignation as he left the arena with endless humiliation. He flew back to the eastern viewing platform and landed beside Prince Lian. He knelt in front of Prince Lian in shame and kowtowed to beg for forgiveness. "Your subordinate is useless and has disappointed your majesty. Please punish me, your majesty." Prince Lian, who was dressed in a black robe with golden threads, waved his hand expressionlessly. "Leave and focus on healing your injuries." Seeing that Prince Lian was not angry and had no intention of punishing him, Yi Ningguang heaved a sigh of relief. After acknowledging the order, he hurriedly retreated to the side to heal his injuries. However, after he calmed down and recalled Prince Lian's reaction, he muttered in his heart, "I lost to that kid in front of everyone and lost face, but your majesty is not angry at all. Your reaction is very calm. Could it be as that kid said, your majesty already knew the result and was certain that I was not his match? So, it is reasonable for me to lose and it is impossible for me to win?" The more Yi Ningguang thought about it, the more confused he became. Doubts flashed through his mind. "Since your majesty knows that the kid is very strong and that the 4 of us are not his match, why do you still want us to snipe him?" However, Yi Ningguang could only suppress his doubts and did not dare to ask. At the same time, the other 3 young geniuses had the same question in their hearts. These 3 middle god lords were 2 men and 1 woman. Their appearances and attire were very strange. They had already fought on the arena and easily defeated their opponents to enter the top 9. Before Yi Ningguang went on the arena, They were full of confidence that Yi Ningguang would be able to defeat Ji Tianqing. However, after witnessing the battle with their own eyes, they realized that Ji Tianqing was much stronger than Yi Ningguang. Since that was the case, asking them to snipe Ji Tianqing was just asking for trouble. Ziman Luo, who was wearing purple leather armor and had a tall and graceful figure, hesitated for a moment before bowing to Prince Lian. "Your Majesty, there is something that I do not understand." Hearing her words, Yi Ningguang and the other two guessed what she wanted to ask. Instantly, everyone's gaze turned to Prince Lian to see how he would answer. Prince Lian glanced at Ziman Luo and said leisurely, "I naturally have my own reasons for making such arrangements. You all just need to carry out your mission. There's no need to make too many guesses." Ziman Luo's body instantly stiffened. She hurriedly bowed and apologized. "My lord, please forgive me. I have overstepped my boundaries." Prince Lian nodded slightly and said, "Yi Ningguang has already completed his mission. You will need to complete the next mission." No matter who met Zhen Hong, they would do their best to defeat her. Although she had successfully entered the top 9 and was qualified to receive the baptism of the Blood Flame Sacred Tree, she was still unable to do so. However, everyone's ranking was different, and their positions under the Blood Flame Sacred Tree were also different. "We must make her rank lower so that she will receive less benefits when she receives the baptism of the Sacred Tree." Ziman Luo and the other two bowed and acknowledged the order. Prince Lian continued, "If you meet Tianqing, you won't be his match. But you have to try your best to withstand a few more moves to exhaust his strength. Also, don't forget to use the flame and death words. As long as you can do this, your mission will be completed, and I will reward you." Hearing this, the eyes of the three brightened. They had vaguely understood something. Just as they had guessed, Prince Lian already knew that they were not Tianqing's match. He had asked them to attack Tianqing, not to defeat him. Instead, he wanted them to use the black, death, and flame skills when they fought with Tianqing. As long as they could do this, they would be rewarded. The three of them immediately understood that Prince Lian had other plans. The key was the three words divine formula. Although Yi Ningguang had lost to Ji Tianqing, however, he had successfully used the black divine incantation on the arena. Next, as long as they met Ji Tianqing and successfully used the death and flame skills, their mission would be complete. When they thought of this, the three of them were even more impressed with Prince Lian's shrewdness and methods. They felt that this lord was really unfathomable. The 8 rounds of battles had finally ended. Ji Tianqing, Zhen Hong, Ziman Luo and the rest had successfully advanced to the next round. Including the lucky ones who had a bye, there were a total of 9 geniuses. They would compete for the final ranking later. As for the 8 eliminated geniuses, they would continue to battle in the arena to fight for the only place to advance. The third prince announced the rules. The 8 defeated geniuses could choose whether to participate in the battle to obtain the 10th place. The Flaming Wolf youth had already taken an elixir to stabilize his injuries. When the third prince's voice fell, he flew into the arena without hesitation. Obviously, he was determined to obtain the 10th place. The other 7 defeated geniuses instantly fell into hesitation. 3 of them were seriously injured and were close to fainting. They could no longer participate in the battle and could only give up regretfully. The other 4 were still in stable condition and had retained some of their strength. However, they had all seen the Flaming Wolf youth break through to the 6th stage in the arena. They had all witnessed the Flaming Wolf youth's strength and methods. Therefore, the 4 of them weighed the pros and cons for a moment. In the end, 2 of them gave up. There were only 2 geniuses left who still had hope for the 10th place. They went into the arena one by one and sparred with the Flaming Wolf youth. The result was as everyone had expected. The 2 young geniuses lost regretfully. The Flaming Wolf youth used his vigorous strength and tenacious battle intent to obtain the 10th place in the end. He finally had the qualifications to enter the Blood Flame Secret Realm and receive the Sacred Tree's baptism. After the duel ended, he glanced at Zhen Hong and silently bowed to him before leaving the dueling ring. Next, the final ranking battle began. The top 9 geniuses no longer drew lots to determine their opponents. Instead, they used a challenge system to determine their strength and ranking. Simply put, the 9 geniuses could challenge each other. As long as they were named, they would have to fight on the arena to determine the winner. If they refused to fight on the arena, they would lose a match. After the challenge ended, the final ranking would be determined according to the number of matches each person won. When the third prince announced the rules, the 8 geniuses were all eager to fight. Everyone's gaze was searching the various viewing platforms as they weighed their targets. Only Ji Tianqing's expression was indifferent as he stepped across the sky and landed on the arena. His body was as straight as a sword as he stood proudly on the arena. His hands were behind his back as he exuded a powerful aura. His gaze swept across the entire arena as he announced a few names in a sonorous voice. I want to challenge Gu Chunfeng, Shi Yuanlong, Qin Yuan, Zi Manluo. A total of 7 people. Other than him and Zhen Hong, the other 7 geniuses were all named by him in public. This was equivalent to announcing in front of millions of people that I want to challenge all of you. I will definitely get the first place. All of you should obediently admit defeat. Fengyun Reading Network. Chapter 30-50. When Ji Tianqing's voice sounded, the entire square was in an uproar. Close to 1 million God-race people revealed shocked expressions and let out cries of disbelief. No one expected that he was actually so domineering. With an absolutely domineering attitude, he challenged all his opponents by name. This kind of thing rarely happened in the previous divine blood ceremony. The last time it happened was a few thousand years ago. However, geniuses who dared to challenge all their opponents like him were generally peerless monsters. Most likely they would sweep the field. The million people, all the nobles and powerhouses were all so excited that their blood surged, revealing expressions of incomparable anticipation. Of course, there were also many people who booed, criticizing and belittling Ji Tianqing. They all insisted that Ji Tianqing was trying to please the crowd with claptrap, and that he would lose all face in a moment. For example, Prince Duanmu thought so. On the ceremony stage, the third prince was all smiles, looking radiant with delight. He said to the second prince beside him, "Second royal brother, this prince told you before. When the final ranking battle comes, young Master Tianqing will definitely save time and challenge all his opponents in public. You see, this prince was indeed right, right?" The second prince frowned and sighed helplessly. With his strength, making this choice is understandable. Of the 7 people challenged by Ji Tianqing, 3 were Prince Lian's people. The other 3 young geniuses were his confidants that he secretly nurtured. Only one was a noble descendant of the capital. He had always been loyal to the king's neutral faction. This result made the second prince very gloomy. Originally, he had more than 20 geniuses under his command participating in the grand competition. He did not expect that in the end only 3 people entered the top 10. The effort and the return were not proportional at all. 100 breaths of time passed. Ji Tianqing stood alone on the stage, but no one went up to compete with him. The 7 geniuses who were called out all had ugly expressions. They were hesitating and weighing the pros and cons helpless. Ji Tianqing could only call out their names one by one. Since you all are unwilling to take the initiative to go up on the stage, then this prince will challenge you one by one. Gu Chunfeng. As he shouted Gu Chunfeng's name, a noble youth stood up on the southern viewing platform and answered with an embarrassed expression, "Young Master Tianqing, I admit defeat." This young genius was precisely the top dignitary of the capital city. His family did not cling to any prince and was only loyal to the king. They were the mainstay of the neutral faction. Gu Chunfeng had no enmity with Ji Tianqing. He had witnessed Ji Tianqing's fights with his own eyes, so he had a good understanding of Ji Tianqing's strength and methods. He knew very well that even if he forced himself to go up to the ring and compete with Ji Tianqing, he would only be defeated in seconds. If he were to be severely injured, it would affect his performance in the upcoming battles and cause his ranking to fall. Then the losses would outweigh the gains. Therefore, it was wise to admit defeat decisively. Many nobles and experts thought of these reasons and expressed their understanding of Gu Chunfeng's decision. However, the millions of commoners in the square were not happy and burst into a discussion. There were also many people who booed and sneered at Gu Chunfeng's decision. Everyone wanted to see a battle between geniuses. They were also looking forward to the appearance of a dark horse to defeat that arrogant fellow, Ji Tianqing. However, Gu Chunfeng directly admitted defeat. Wasn't this too cowardly? Couldn't he have some backbone? Couldn't he have a good fight with Ji Tianqing and let everyone have a good look? After Gu Chunfeng decisively admitted defeat, the third prince announced the result and recorded it. Then Ji Tianqing continued to call out names. Shi Yuanlong. His loud voice spread throughout the square. Countless people looked towards the northern viewing platform, searching for Shi Yuanlong's figure. This person was a confidant of the second prince, and was also one of the 10 heroes of the capital. His strength was not far from Xue Bufan and Bai Hao's. However, Xue Bufan and Bai Hao's ending was obvious to all. They were both defeated by Ji Tianqing in one move, and did not even enter the top 10. Their situation was very tragic. After being called out by Ji Tianqing in public, Shi Yuanlong stood up with a gloomy face. Being stared at by countless people, he was embarrassed and ashamed. Although he really wanted to go on stage and fight with Ji Tianqing, even if he lost, he would not lose face. However, he had to consider the consequences. After being injured by Ji Tianqing, would he still be able to challenge others? If he ended up at the bottom of the top 9, wouldn't his loss be even greater? Therefore, he could only bow his head to reality and reply weakly, "I also admit defeat." Hearing his reply, many nobles and powerhouses nodded secretly to express their understanding. On the ceremony stage, the second prince also secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this kid was rational enough and did not act rashly. However, the people in the square could not take it anymore and shouted even more emotionally. "Hey, can't you geniuses have some backbone? All of you admit defeat and surrender. Why don't you just stop fighting and just use your mouth to rank? Is Tianqing that terrifying? Can't you top geniuses make us look at you in a different light? This is too boring. Is anyone going to go on stage to fight?" Under the agitation of the crowd, the people shouted and roared at the top of their lungs. At the same time, their impression of the young geniuses had plummeted. When Gu Chunfeng and Shi Yuanlong heard the discussions of the people, they felt even more ashamed and their faces turned red. At this time, the third prince recorded the results. Ji Tianqing had won another round. Ji Tianqing continued to call out names. Qin Yun. Unfortunately, Qin Yun was also one of the geniuses groomed by the second prince. He kept a low profile and his strength was slightly stronger than Shi Yuanlong and Bai Hao. However, he did not fish for fame and use the title of the top 10 heroes. However, after thinking about it for a long time, he still felt that Ji Tianqing was too strong and he could not match up to him. If he went on stage, he would definitely be beaten up by Ji Tianqing and would have to leave the stage with injuries. A wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. Under the gaze of the crowd, he stood up and shouted, "I admit defeat." Since Gu Chunfeng and Shi Yuanlong had set the example, it was not embarrassing for him to admit defeat. However, by doing so, Ji Tianqing had won 3 rounds consecutively without lifting a finger. The people's discussion became louder, and they became more agitated. Some of the hot-tempered people from the deity tribe even started to curse and slander the young geniuses. Even the dignitaries and experts on the viewing platforms didn't look too good. It was fine if 1 or 2 people had admitted defeat, but 3 people had admitted defeat in a row. Wasn't this too shameful? Were the young geniuses of Bloody Flame Holy Country so spineless? This year's Divine Blood ceremony could have been the most exciting one. How did it become the most boring one? Tianqing's strength was very strong, but his reputation wasn't that great. It was not to the extent that the young geniuses did not even dare to fight and admitted defeat. This was too childish. This could not go on. As a result, many of the leaders of the rich and powerful families, as well as those experts with high reputations, protested to the 2 princes. Fengyun Reading Network. Chapter 3051. In a short 20 breaths of time, at least 40 over nobles and powerhouses sent voice transmissions to the 2 princes to express their protest, or put forward the corresponding ideas and suggestions. All in all, everyone only had one request. Hurry up and end this boring and awkward situation. Ji Tianqing stood on the stage alone, calling out the names of the young geniuses one by one, but he scared everyone until they admitted defeat. He was domineering and awe-inspiring. But where would the royal family put their face? The Bloodfire Divine Kingdom's young generation was so weak? Wasn't this slapping the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom's face? They had to think of a way to stop him. The second prince and third prince also had a headache. The two exchanged a glance, both revealing helpless bitter smiles. The challenge competition is like this. Young Master Tianqing wants to challenge everyone. We can't stop him either. After all, he didn't break the rules either. Yeah. Young Master Tianqing's strength is too strong. This is obvious to all. Those few young geniuses want to preserve their strength and are not willing to make meaningless sacrifices. This is also something within reason. Have us come forward to intervene? How do we stop it? Could it be? We have to announce in public that young Master Tianqing won 3 matches in a row and is already very tired. His stamina consumption is great. So we have him leave the stage first and rest for a while? Isn't this nonsense? He didn't even move a finger. What stamina consumption? The two princes secretly communicated via voice transmissions, full of gloomy ridicule. Finally, the two brothers reached a consensus. Forget it. Ignore those nobles and old fellows. Pretend not to hear. Hold on a little longer. Anyway, 3 people already admitted defeat. At most 1 or 2 more and it will be over. The 3 geniuses under Prince Lian's command have an eagerness to give it a try. They shouldn't admit defeat, right? This can work. At least let the commoners watch a few matches. Alright, let's do it like this. Hence, the challenge competition continued. It was still Ji Tianqing's roll call time. Next, Shang-Chi. Very unfortunately, Shang-Chi was still a person under the second prince. If he also opened his mouth to admit defeat, the 3 geniuses under the second prince would be wiped out in one fell swoop. Even though his strength reached the 6th level Divine Lord realm, and his foundation was even deeper. Compared to Xue Bufan, Bai Hao, Shi Yuanlong and the others, he was stronger. However, he did not have the slightest confidence that he could defeat Ji Tianqing. His first reaction was, of course, to admit defeat. But the most depressing thing was that he was the 4th person to be called out. If he was the first to be called out, he would simply admit defeat without any psychological burden. Now the millions of God race clansmen were making a ruckus, and the crowd was agitated. These young geniuses with illustrious reputations had greatly disappointed the common people. They were currently enduring criticism and humiliation. Even if he wanted to admit defeat, he had to muster up the courage and bear the enormous pressure. After hesitating for a long time, Shang-Chi finally braced himself and left the crowd, flying towards the arena. Ji Tianqing glanced at him in surprise but didn't say anything. The second prince furrowed his brows and cursed inwardly. Shang-Chi, that idiot. Has he not considered the consequences of his impulsiveness? Tianqing doesn't have any relationship with you, so he won't show you any mercy. With that thought in mind, he was about to send a voice transmission to Shang-Chi to remind him. Who knew that Shang-Chi stood still on the arena without any intention of making a move. He actually cupped his hands towards Ji Tianqing and said in all seriousness, Young Master Tianqing is in high spirits and has an extraordinary aura. You defeated me with just an invisible divine power. I am definitely not someone who doesn't know how to appreciate favors. I admit defeat here and thank you for saving my face. After saying that, Shang-Chi left the arena without even looking back. Ji Tianqing frowned, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. What the hell? I didn't do anything at all. I defeated you with just an invisible divine power? And saved your face? Why are you so dramatic? On the ceremony stage, the second prince was stunned for a moment before revealing a gratified smile. You're worth teaching. The millions of God race citizens in the square also had dumbfounded looks on their faces. The crowd was quiet for a while before bursts of discussion broke out. Shang-Chi actually admitted defeat too? He has some backbone and finally went up the stage to spar. When did they spar? They didn't make a move at all. Didn't you hear what Shang-Chi said? They used an invisible divine power to resist before. He's not Tianqing's match. Wow. Indeed worthy of being a God Lord powerhouse. The fight was formless and the victor was decided silently. Although what you all said makes sense, why do I feel that something is off? That's right. Even if they fought before, we can't understand it either. There's no appreciation value. Countless citizens discussed animatedly, only feeling that Shang-Chi and Ji Tianqing's fight was unfathomable. Even if someone felt that something was off, they did not dare to ask. All in all, Shang-Chi fooled many citizens and finally admitted defeat without being scolded by everyone. The third prince announced the result loudly. Ji Tianqing won 4 matches in a row. There were only 3 people left who were challenged by him. They were the 3 young geniuses under Prince Lian. Before Ji Tianqing could continue to call out names, Ziman Luo took the initiative to fly out of the viewing platform and towards the arena. Her face was gloomy as she stared sharply at Ji Tianqing. Her entire body was filled with a strong fighting spirit. The citizens in the arena originally thought that she would admit defeat after going up the stage like Shang-Chi. But no one expected that she would land on the arena and immediately pull out a divine whip surrounded by purple flames. After shouting, she attacked Ji Tianqing without even saying goodbye. Swoosh! 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 With a swing of the divine whip, dazzling divine light filled the sky. Purple flames surrounded the sky and covered the sun. Nearly 100 shadows of divine whips, carrying peerlessly swift and fierce might, enveloped the entire arena. Seeing this scene, the citizens who were uninterested and discussing animatedly earlier were instantly energized. Everyone's eyes lit up as they quickly looked up at the arena and watched the battle with anticipation. Great! Finally, someone has made a move. It's Ziman Luo. She's very strong. I wonder if she can defeat Tianqing? Regardless of whether she can defeat Tianqing or not, at least she dares to make a move. She's much stronger than the other geniuses. Who said that women are inferior to men? I think she's braver than the others. Ziman Luo, from today onwards, I'm your fan. I'll support you forever. It's time to make a name for yourself. As long as Ziman Luo defeats Tianqing, she can win supreme glory and surpass all the other geniuses. It wasn't just the commoners who were present. Even the nobles and powerhouses were looking forward to it. Everyone was hoping to see a miracle. However, this was destined to be an extravagant hope. Even though Ziman Luo went all out and used the flame divine formula to release the most violent power, Sumo's attack was still not enough. Ji Tianqing's expression did not change. He raised his fists and punched out with all his might. Boom! Crack! 2 incomparably huge shadows of dragons and elephants carried supreme divine power that could suppress the ages and crush the heavens and the earth. They destroyed all the divine light shadows with a loud bang. The purple flames that filled the sky dissipated on the spot. Ziman Luo also felt as though she had been struck by lightning. Her body curled up into a ball and she was sent flying 10 miles away. Chapter 3052. PFFF. Ziman Luo, who had shrunk into a ball, smashed onto the edge of the arena. She rolled a dozen times on the ground and only stopped when she hit the sky blue barrier. PFFF. She was in so much pain that her body was twitching. Black blood spurted out from her nose and mouth, and her spirit was also very weak. Being hit by the dragon elephant divine fist head-on, she almost died on the spot. She was like an ant being crushed by a giant rock. Ji Tianqing's strength and the power of the dragon elephant divine fist were far beyond her imagination. Fortunately, she was mentally prepared and knew that she was not Ji Tianqing's match. Hence, she had no intention of winning. She wore 2 sets of divine armor and protected herself well. She only hoped that she could use the yen word to complete her mission. Now she got what she wanted. Not only did she use the yen word, but she also preserved her life and divine Dao foundation. It was not a loss. While she was twitching on the ground, she was secretly rejoicing. Fortunately, I was smart enough to wear 2 sets of divine armor in advance. Otherwise, my divine body would have been destroyed, and my divine core would have been severely damaged. As this thought flashed across her mind, she suddenly sensed that Ji Tianqing was about to raise his hand to cast another spell. If she took another punch, she would not be able to escape death even if she had 2 sets of divine armor protecting her. She immediately panicked and shouted at the top of her lungs at the fastest speed, "I admit defeat." Just as she said those 3 words, a mountain-sized dragon elephant shadow raised its 4 hooves and stomped down. That huge hoof, which seemed to have materialized, was right above her head. If she was a little later, she would have been stomped into meat paste by the dragon elephant shadow. Fortunately, the dragon elephant shadow stopped in midair and was only 3 feet away from her. Phew! That was close. Ziman Luo heaved a sigh of relief. Her hanging heart was finally at ease. However, a formless divine might suddenly descended and struck her ruthlessly. Bam! Ziman Luo's body instantly crumbled into dozens of pieces. Fresh blood splattered all over the ground. Even her divine core was severely damaged, and she fainted on the spot. Seeing this scene, the nearly 1 million God Race citizens in the plaza exclaimed. Countless people's faces were filled with shock as they whispered to each other. Of course, the commoners could not see any clues. They only felt pity for Ziman Luo's defeat. However, on the eastern viewing platform, Prince Lien furrowed his brows and his face darkened. The other two young geniuses were startled too, as their eyes were filled with flames of fury. Bastard! You despicable bastard! You're simply cruel and vicious. Bastard! Ziman Luo has already admitted defeat. Why are you still so ruthless? Ordinary people might not be able to see it, but these geniuses could see it clearly. The dragon elephant phantom did not touch Ziman Luo, but a formless divine might crush Ziman Luo's divine body. Prince Lien couldn't expose him on the spot due to his status. The two young geniuses were close friends with Ziman Luo. It was only natural that they would seek justice for her. Hearing their shouts, many nobles and experts came to their senses. Everyone recalled the scene from before and understood the whole story. Countless people looked at the ceremonial stage to see how the two princes would handle this. The second prince frowned and thought to himself, Tianqing is really ruthless. He actually destroyed Ziman Luo's divine body. This is offending Prince Lien to the extreme. However, I do admire this kid's way of doing things. Anyway, he has already formed a deadly feud with Prince Lien. Of course, he'll do his best to take revenge. The third prince was also very worried. He sighed and said, I've been advising him not to make an enemy out of Prince Lien. Now it seems that he didn't listen to me at all. Instead, he's taking revenge even more seriously. However, since it had already happened, he still had to think of a way to deal with it. Therefore, he looked at Ji Tianqing with a stern expression and asked, Tianqing, someone accused you of violating the rules of the arena. After Ziman Luo admitted defeat, you even severely injured her. How do you explain this matter? Ji Tianqing had already retracted the dragon elephant phantom. With his hands behind his back, he replied calmly, This is not an accusation but a slander. I strictly abide by the rules of the arena. How did I break the rules? The third prince said expressionlessly, The rules of the arena competition state that external forces are not allowed and no one is allowed to die. Ziman Luo was severely injured by you. Her divine body was destroyed but she didn't die. In this case, you indeed didn't break the rules. However, the problem is that after Ziman Luo admitted defeat, she was still injured by you. Ji Tianqing explained again. Everyone saw that when Ziman Luo admitted defeat, I had already stopped. As for the formless divine power that destroyed her divine body, it was the aftereffect of this remarkable power. It couldn't be prevented from erupting. My cultivation isn't high enough. Currently, I still can't control it as I wish. I've made a fool of myself in front of everyone. As soon as he said that, many commoners, nobles and experts stopped pursuing the matter. However, how could the two young geniuses beside Prince Lien believe his words? Bullshit. It's obvious that you used a dirty trick to injure Ziman Luo on purpose. Tianqing, don't try to twist the truth. Don't think of getting away with it. The two young geniuses were filled with righteous indignation. They accused Ji Tianqing ferociously. Ji Tianqing looked at them indifferently. He curled his lips and said, In the arena competition, swords have no eyes. I've already shown mercy by not killing her. Since she dared to enter the arena, she should have been prepared to be severely injured. She can only blame herself for overestimating herself and not admitting defeat in time. If she had admitted defeat directly like the previous few, how would she have ended up like this? After saying that, he added another sentence with a cold smile. Right, I'm going to challenge the two of you next. If you don't want to end up like Ziman Luo, admit defeat now. Hearing these words, the two young geniuses were instantly enraged to the point that smoke was coming out of their 7 orifices. However, in the eyes of the others, Ji Tianqing's words were not without reason. especially the 4 young geniuses who admitted defeat. They all nodded in agreement and rejoiced in their hearts. Fortunately, I was smart enough to admit defeat directly. Although face is important, our lives are more important. Z-Man Luo is a living example. Whoever dares to laugh at us for surrendering is an idiot. The 2 young geniuses were hopping mad. They insisted that Ji Tianqing was abusing his position to avenge a private grudge. The third prince had no choice but to step forward and announce the result with a dignified expression. Everyone, please be silent. As the host and supervisor of this grand ceremony, I will announce the result. Tianqing did not violate the rules of the arena competition. His words and actions did not cross the line. The challenge competition will continue. Those who participate in the following battles, please be careful. On the surface, it sounded like the third prince was impartial in dealing with the problem. However, in reality, he was helping Ji Tianqing to absolve himself of any wrongdoing. The 2 young geniuses were unconvinced. However, they could not do anything to the third prince. They looked at Prince Lian for help. Prince Lian's expression was dark. His gaze was gloomy as he sent a few instructions. After the 2 young geniuses listened carefully, they nodded their heads and complied. When they looked at Ji Tianqing again, their eyes were filled with resentment and killing intent. Fengyun Reading Network. Chapter 3053. The 2 young geniuses gave up. The third prince had already announced the results. They could not continue to pester him. The 2 could only fly up the stage and take the pieces of flesh and blood that were scattered on the ground and Z-Man Luo's divine spark away. Prince Lian exhorted the 2 of them, as well as the changes in their eyes, all fell into Ji Tianqing's eyes. Although this was just a very small detail, but Ji Tianqing keenly sensed that the 2 young geniuses' eyes changed. Prince Lian must have exhorted something. In this arena competition, Prince Lian was unwilling to be left out. He must be playing some tricks and schemes. Very soon, the plaza and the stands quieted down. The challenge continued. Ji Tianqing looked coldly at the 2 young geniuses and asked in a deep voice, Shi Yunxiao, Zhuo Tianqi, which one of you will go first? The 2 were called out, but they were not in a hurry to go up the stage to challenge. They looked at each other, their expressions very solemn. Their eyes were also very complicated. Yunxiao, you go up first. No. Brother Tianqi, you go up first. As long as you can complete the mission, I can take care of the aftermath. Yunxiao, have you really thought it through? Zhuo Tianqi looked at Shi Yunxiao very emotionally. His heart and hands were trembling. Shi Yunxiao nodded solemnly and said through voice transmission, Brother Tianqi, one of us has to sacrifice to complete the Lord's orders. You have a family and clan and I'm alone. So, I'm the most suitable to cover the rear. Zhuo Tianqi's eyes were somewhat red. His heart was heavy as he said in a choked voice, Yunxiao, I will remember your friendship in my heart for the rest of my life. That's enough. Shi Yunxiao nodded and patted his shoulder with a smile. Brother Tianqi, go. Zhuo Tianqi did not say anything else and nodded heavily. Then he turned and flew across the sky, landing on the stage. Swoosh! Zhuo Tianqi stood still on the stage, 1,000 feet away from Ji Tianqing, facing off with a murderous aura. His entire body flickered with purple light as he wore a set of dark purple armor. He held a purple heavy sword that was tinged with black as he stared fixedly at Ji Tianqing. Brat! You are vicious, cruel, tyrannical, arrogant, and despicable. Zhuo Tianqi angrily glared at Ji Tianqing and fiercely said, In this battle, you are no longer challenging me. But I am taking revenge on you. I want to avenge Z-Man Luo and kill you, you bastard. Zhuo Tianqi cursed with righteous indignation. His body emitted a murderous aura that soared to the sky, and a bloody light lingered around him. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and the corners of his mouth curled into a playful sneer. So, you want to have a duel with this monarch in public regardless of life and death? Zhuo Tianqi furrowed his brows and quickly shut his mouth. Ji Tianqing continued, All right. Benjun will give you this opportunity. You want to take revenge for Z-Man Luo, right? You shall sign a life and death contract in front of everyone as proof. Zhuo Tianqi's eyebrows twitched violently from the provocation. His face turned green and white, revealing an incomparably ashamed and resentful expression. He was just saying it. He had never thought of signing a life-and-death contract. If he really wanted to have a life-and-death duel with Ji Tianqing, then he would be courting death. His outcome would definitely be 10 times worse than Zimonla's. However, Ji Tianqing caught his words and looked at him with contempt, making him unable to back down. What could he do? He couldn't possibly swallow the words he had just said back into his stomach, right? Zhuo Tianqi, what are you still standing there for? Ji Tianqing sneered when he saw him standing there without moving. Weren't you filled with righteous indignation and your blood boiling just now? Now you want to be a coward? Roar. You're courting death. Zhuo Tianqi could no longer suppress his murderous intent. With a furious roar, he brandished his sword and charged toward Ji Tianqing. Heavenly Fiend Death Star Slash. Zhuo Tianqi roared furiously. He held the purple-black heavy sword with both hands and brandished it wildly without holding back. The purple-black sword light covered the sky and covered the sun. At this moment he burned his divine blood and used a secret technique to stimulate his potential, erupting with 3 times his combat strength. The entire arena space was filled with billions of purple-black divine flames, filled with an incomparably chilling aura of death. The thousands of purple-black sword lights were like the blades of death from the underworld. They turned into violent hurricanes and enveloped Ji Tianqing's figure. Such a gorgeous scene. The countless deity race citizens in the plaza were dazzled by the sight. They revealed astonished expressions. Many people exclaimed, "Oh my God! What a gorgeous divine technique! What a powerful and terrifying aura of death! I always thought that grayness and coldness represented death. I didn't expect death to be so gorgeous." Zhuo Tianqi's strength and foundation are stronger than the 10 heroes of the royal city. His understanding of divine abilities and secret techniques is also deeper. If Tianqing can easily neutralize such a powerful divine ability and secret technique, then he deserves to be called the strongest. If Tianqing is not seriously injured, then Zhuo Tianqi's divine technique will be defeated. Let's wait and see. Under the gaze of millions of people, Ji Tianqing was in the boundless domain of death. He unhurriedly raised his palms and met the blades of death that blotted out the sky. Sky-piercing finger. Sky dragon palm. A scene that left countless people dumbfounded appeared. Ji Tianqing was actually multitasking. His hands were performing different divine abilities at the same time. It transformed into the purest divine power, causing the blood-red torch to grow taller and taller, its power becoming more and more turbulent. In the middle of the blood torch there was a dark purple flame. That was Shi Yunxiao's divine soul fire at the same time. It was his final kill. Battle spirits returned to the west, unhindered throughout the ages. Black Death Infernal Spirit, please go to reincarnation. An ancient roar came from the blood torch that covered the sky. It was full of tragic and murderous intent. At this moment, the nearly 1 million people in the square were affected by the invisible aura. Everyone stopped talking and shouting, and kept silent as they stared at the arena. Their expressions became solemn, and their hearts were heavy. Many people were weak and couldn't understand what Shi Yunxiao was doing. But everyone could feel that Shi Yunxiao was about to die. He had used some kind of ancient secret technique, sacrificing his own life, all for the sake of completing the most dazzling and powerful attack. After all, his divine body was disappearing quickly, and ashes were scattered all over the ground. On the arena, only Ji Tianqing and the blood torch were left. The nearly 1 million people of the God Clan, the dignitaries, and the experts on the viewing platform. While their hearts were heavy and shocked, they also had many questions. What is Shi Yunxiao trying to do? It's just a martial arts competition. Tianqing won't kill him. Why is he sacrificing his life? He's using his life to use an ancient secret skill. Is he trying to kill Tianqing? These thoughts flashed through everyone's minds at the same time. The expressions of the 2 princes on the stage also changed abruptly. Their eyes were filled with shock. It's over. Shi Yunxiao is using his ultimate killing move. He would rather sacrifice his life to kill Tianqing. The 3rd prince was filled with shock and anxiety. This must be Prince Lian's scheme. Even if he has to sacrifice Shi Yunxiao, He has to kill Tianqing on the spot. How ruthless. The second prince was also angry. He stared at Ji Tianqing anxiously, and his face was full of worry. Although he and Ji Tianqing had not formed an alliance. But at this moment he definitely didn't want Ji Tianqing to be killed. Everyone's eyes were focused on the shocking blood fire in Ji Tianqing. At this moment, Ji Tianqing observed the blood-red torch for a while. He finally saw some clues and his eyes lit up. Shi Yunxiao is burning his flesh and blood and igniting his divine soul flame. The blood fire is on the outside, and the divine soul flame is hidden inside. This is his ultimate killing move at the cost of his life. The divine soul flame is his trump card. But Shi Yunxiao should know very well that with his strength and realm, even if he uses this ultimate killing move, he can't kill me. So, before using this ultimate killing move, there must be some premeditation and foreshadowing. Ji Tianqing's eyes were fixed on the torch, but his brain was working at high speed, analyzing the truth as fast as he could. Since this is Prince Lian's scheme, he must have planned it long ago. Yi Ningguang, Ziman Luo, and Zhou Tianqi must have received his secret order to do something to me in advance. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made meaningless sacrifices and been seriously injured by me. But what exactly did they do? Ji Tianqing frowned with a grave expression. He tried his best to find out the truth. The blood-red torch, which was more than 100 feet tall, released endless blood fire that filled the entire arena. The area within a 10-mile radius was turned into a world of blood fire. Ji Tianqing was in the middle of it, enduring the burning of the blood fire. He was in a precarious situation, but as if he couldn't feel the pain, he still didn't counterattack. His body emitted a golden light that protected his divine body. He was still frowning as he pondered. The next moment, Shi Yunxiao's body completely disappeared. He had completely turned into blood fire and divine soul flame. The 100-feet-tall torch turned into a giant fire dragon. It let out an earth-shattering roar and blasted towards Ji Tianqing. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing suddenly came to a realization and guessed the truth. He opened his eyes and stared at the fire dragon with a sharp gaze. He whispered, "Black Death Fire Soul, please go to reincarnation." Prince Lian is indeed sinister. He actually made the four of them use different types of secret skills. The first three will use Black Death and Fire. Then, Shi Yunxiao will use his life to use the soul skill to complete the ultimate killing move of the Black Death Infernal Soul. Chapter 3055. Even though Ji Tianqing had guessed the truth from the clues, he didn't know what was going on. However, he still hadn't figured out how the Black, Death, and Flame divine abilities performed by the previous three people would affect him. Could it be that they risked serious injuries to use the three different types of divine abilities just to taint me with the auras of different powers? When Shi Yunxiao used his divine power to kill me, he could detonate the four energies and kill me instantly. That was Ji Tianqing's first thought. Then, the Crimson Fire Dragon had already swooped down and was above his head. He didn't have time to think. He could only take out the Sword of Burial of Heaven and use his divine power. Sword breaks 9 heavens. The Sword of Burial of Heaven swung and a colorful light shot out. A giant sword 100 feet long appeared and drove away the endless blood. It was like a ray of light in the dark night. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The holy and berserk giant sword destroyed the blood flame dragon with a loud bang, causing blood flames to splatter all over the sky. Seeing this scene, the commoners in the square, the dignitaries, and the experts on the viewing platform all revealed looks of regret. Countless people thought that Shi Yunxiao's ultimate skill, which he had risked his life to use, was still defeated by Ji Tianqing. Even the two princes on the stage heaved a sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. However, on the eastern viewing platform, Yi Ningguang and Prince Lian, who were beside him, had cold smiles on their faces. Their gazes became cold, mocking, and filled with killing intent. They knew that Ji Tianqing only destroyed the Crimson Fire Dragon. That was just a facade of grandeur. The real danger was the divine soul fire hidden in the Crimson Fire Dragon. Ji Tianqing was going to die. Even the Grand Prince and Yi Ningguang smiled cruelly. They couldn't wait to see Ji Tianqing's body explode, his godhead crumble, and his divine soul perish. As expected, when the crimson fire scattered, The purple divine soul fire also split into thousands of wisps. Swish, swish, swish. In just an instant, countless tiny wisps of spirit fire flooded Ji Tianqing like a torrential downpour. Boom! Then, his entire body was surrounded by the purple divine soul fire. He turned into a giant purple fireball and rolled in the crimson fire dragon. The purple fire surged and rose fiercely. Ji Tianqing's figure disappeared. The sudden turn of events stunned the millions of people. Countless people were shocked and couldn't help but open their mouths and exclaim. No one would have thought that Shi Yunxiao's secret skill would be so eerie with its hidden murderous intent. Then Ji Tianqing finally understood everything. When the innumerable wisps of purple soul flames attacked him, his heart suddenly trembled, and his divine soul became ice cold. The entire arena was also very quiet. Only the endless blood and fire were surging. The millions of divine race people in the square all stared at the arena with their eyes wide open, unblinking. No one understood what Ji Tianqing was doing, nor did they know what he was going through. Everyone's heart was in suspense, waiting for the final result. However, the expressions of Prince Lian and Yi Ningguang changed dramatically on the spot. The sneers on their faces froze, and the killing intent in their eyes faded. Seeing the purple divine soul fire disappear, they realized that something was wrong and guessed that their plan had failed. As expected, they waited for 10 breaths of time, but Ji Tianqing did not explode and die. The earth-shattering explosion, the purple divine soul fire, and the scene of Ji Tianqing's body being smashed to pieces did not appear. Their bodies stiffened as they glared at Ji Tianqing with resentment in their eyes. They roared in their hearts. Why? Why didn't he explode and die? Our king's plan failed? The power of the Black Death infernal spirit did not explode? How is this possible? We've already succeeded. Damn it! Who the hell is that kid? I have carefully planned and implemented the plan in 4 steps, but it still failed to kill him? Did he already know about my plot and know the power of the Black Death and flame? Prince Lian stared at the white cocoon with a gloomy face and roared in his heart. This is impossible. If he has such terrifying intelligence, wouldn't he be able to predict the future? He must have been lucky to have a divine artifact protecting him. That was how he managed to survive. That must be it. Prince Lian would never admit that Ji Tianqing was smarter than him. He found a reason to believe that Ji Tianqing was just lucky to have a divine artifact to protect him. Otherwise, how could he explain why he had lost so miserably? Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 3056. The square and the viewing platform were silent for 100 breaths of time, until the blood and fire on the arena dissipated, the white cocoon disappeared, and Ji Tianqing's figure reappeared. Everything was over. The arena was clear again, and Ji Tianqing was safe and sound. It was only now that the millions of God race citizens, countless dignitaries, and experts revealed looks of intense shock. Countless people smiled, shouted, and cheered excitedly. There were even countless people who clapped and cheered excitedly. Among them were the 2 princes on the stage, and Zhen Hong and Ning Xiyuan on the northern viewing platform, who had been on tenterhooks. Just now Ji Tianqing was wrapped in purple soul fire and fell into a sea of blood and fire. He was in a precarious situation. The 2 of them were also worried, and their hearts were tightly clenched. They hated that they could not bear the danger and pain for Ji Tianqing. Fortunately, it was all over. Ji Tianqing successfully resolved the crisis and appeared unscathed. The 2 girls were relieved, and their hanging hearts finally fell back into their stomachs. The cheers and applause of the audience shook the sky, and it lasted for 10 breaths of time without stopping. Ji Tianqing stood in the arena with an indifferent expression, ignoring the excited crowd. He looked coldly at the eastern viewing platform, and his eyes fell on Grand Prince Lian. The 2 of them looked at each other. Even though they were 10 miles apart, they could clearly see the coldness and killing intent in each other's eyes. There was no verbal communication between these 2 experts, and there was no need for provocation or ridicule. But both of them were well aware. Their hatred had grown and deepened to the point where they would not rest until one of them was dead. Moreover, both of them were extremely arrogant people. Neither of them would bow their heads and admit defeat. After the 2 of them looked at each other for a moment, Ji Tianqing's mouth curved into a mocking sneer. His meaning was obvious. So what if you are sinister? You can't beat me. You are not my opponent at all. Then Ji Tianqing withdrew his gaze and ignored Grand Prince Lian. It was a simple and subtle action, but it made Grand Prince Lian unable to restrain his anger. His face turned ashen and his fists cracked. If it were not for the fact that he was in public, he would have started a massacre to vent his anger. After taking a few deep breaths, he suppressed his boundless anger. There was no need for him to continue watching the battle. Staying at the scene would only make things worse. Thus, he stood up expressionlessly and left the viewing platform. Yining Wang hurriedly took Ziman Luo and Zhuo Tianqi's corpses and godheads and left dejectedly. Fortunately, everyone's attention was on Ji Tianqing. Even when Prince Lian quietly left, not many people noticed. At this moment the third prince stopped clapping. He was excited and his blood was boiling. He announced loudly, "Congratulations, Tianqing, for defeating Shi Yunxiao once again." At this point, Tianqing had completed 7 challenges and obtained an unprecedented 7 consecutive victories. This king must tell everyone that in the past 5,000 years, in the hundreds of divine blood ceremonies, this is the most glorious and pinnacle achievement. Now I can announce in advance that Tianqing is the champion of this grand competition. He is fully deserving of the title of the strongest and the pride of the blood-flame divine country. The third prince's vigorous voice reverberated throughout the entire square and reverberated in the sky. His agitation and excitement infected the millions of divine race members, making countless people cheer. Although the divine race commoners in the square did not have the qualifications to take part in the arena competition, they witnessed the scene of the grand competition. However, they had personally witnessed the process of Ji Tianqing creating a miracle. They also felt a sense of participation and pride in their hearts. Today's experience was enough for them to brag about for the rest of their lives. The cheers of the audience were thunderous and did not stop for a long time. However, many of the dignitaries and powerhouses on the viewing platform frowned and started discussing secretly. Tianqing could win 7 consecutive battles and crush so many prodigies. It's indeed a miracle hard to come by in 1,000 years. But the third prince's words are not too strict, right? Yeah. According to the arena competition's rules, the other participants can still continue to challenge. What if a certain prodigy creates a miracle and obtains 8 consecutive victories? Although everyone is well aware that with Tianqing's strength and battle results, he should be firmly in first place. But the third prince can't announce it publicly. What if a miracle happens and he gets slapped in the face? Forget it, don't bother so much. For a miracle like Tianqing to appear, it's already a once in 1,000 years occurrence. How can someone possibly have 8 consecutive victories? I heard that Tianqing has a very close relationship with the third prince. He lives in the third prince's long-winded court. Therefore, it's also reasonable that the third prince is so protective of him. This is a once-in-a-lifetime happy occasion, so let's not be picky about it. To be able to witness this miracle with our own eyes, we should be happy. Just as many dignitaries and powerhouses were discussing through voice transmissions, the second prince on the ceremony platform opened his mouth. He said in a loud voice with a dignified expression, "Tianqing has already obtained 7 consecutive victories. If you don't continue to challenge, you can withdraw from the arena to rest." Following this, the arena challenges will continue. The remaining participants can still go on stage to challenge. After all the challenges are over, the rankings will be based on their battle results. I repeat again, swords and sabers have no eyes on the arena. It's inevitable that there will be injuries. Please consider carefully. After he finished speaking, Ji Tianqing left the arena. He returned to the viewing platform with a calm expression. Zhan Hong and Ning Xiyuan quickly got up, held his arms and helped him sit down. The 2 women were full of excitement, and their eyes were shining. They surrounded him and asked about his well-being, concerned about his injuries. "Don't be like this. I'm not injured. Calm down." Ji Tianqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw them carefully caring for him. Only then did Zhan Hong and Ning Xiyuan realize that they had lost their composure. They were a little shy and their cheeks were pink. Ji Tianqing looked at Zhan Hong and said with a smile, "Although the challenges will continue, There are only a few people left who can participate. Zhenhong, as long as you don't have any accidents, you will definitely enter the top 3. Hearing this, Zhenhong finally understood what Seiji was trying to do. No wonder you were the first to challenge. This is not your style at all. It turns out that you are helping me to get rid of the strongest opponents first. Young master, you are so good to me. Zhenhong looked at Ji Tianqing with sincere eyes. She was so moved that she was about to cry and her heart was about to melt. Ning Xiyuan was also very envious of Zhenhong. She admired and liked Ji Tianqing's kindness and strength from the bottom of her heart. Seeing the two women being so intimate with Ji Tianqing, countless people were envious and secretly sighed. Sigh. No wonder he can get the favor of 2 stunning beauties. Even if he has 2 beauties in his arms, they won't argue. If I had such monstrous talent and strength like him, not to mention 2 stunning beauties, I would definitely gather 108 beauties and open a huge harem. This was the inner thoughts of most of the Protoss. Unfortunately, no matter how envious they were of Ji Tianqing, they could only look at him and sigh. Oh. Chapter 3057. After a long while, everyone gradually calmed down. The clamor and discussion in the field were much softer than before. The challenge continued. Before Zhenhong could step onto the stage, a noble youth dressed in a brocade robe took the lead and flew onto the stage. Many people recognized him and shouted his name loudly. Shang-Chi. It's Shang-Chi. You are indeed very courageous. No wonder you are the genius who fought Tianqing without being injured. That's right, that young noble was Shang-Chi. Previously, when he was challenged by Ji Tianqing, he had forced himself to put on an act and deceived countless people. That was why he had not been condemned and despised. At this moment, Ji Tianqing's challenge ended. On the other hand, he had preserved his strength and was in his peak condition. Thus, he confidently stepped onto the stage. He stood on the arena and called out the names of a few geniuses in high spirits. I want to challenge Gu Chunfeng, Shi Yuanlong, Qin Yun, Zhenhong, Ziman Luo, Shi Yunxiao, and Zhuo Tianqi. Other than Ji Tianqing, all the geniuses in the top 9 were challenged by him. The third prince announced loudly, due to Shi Yunxiao's death from self-detonation, Zhuo Tianqi and Ziman Luo had to leave the stage with heavy injuries. Therefore, Shang-Chi won without a fight, and he even won 3 rounds consecutively. This result sounded shocking, but it was within everyone's expectations. Everyone knew that this was all thanks to Ji Tianqing. If not for him defeating those 3 people, how could Shang-Chi pick up this bargain? After 3 consecutive victories, Shang-Chi began to fight Gu Chunfeng. Gu Chunfeng was on the same level as him, but the difference was in their foundation and secret techniques. The two of them fought for a quarter of an hour in the ring, exchanging more than 300 moves. Both of them suffered some minor injuries before the victor was decided. In the end, Gu Chunfeng was defeated, and Shang-Chi won 4 consecutive victories. Following that, Shi Yuanlong stepped onto the battle stage and fought Shang-Chi on the spot. Originally, Shi Yuanlong's strength was slightly weaker than Shang-Chi's. However, Shang-Chi had just fought a battle, and he had used up a lot of his divine power. He was also injured. After exchanging over 1,000 moves, Shang-Chi was finally able to defeat Shi Yuanlong and obtain 5 consecutive victories. Without waiting for Shang-Chi to recover, Qin Yun went up to the fighting ring again. At this time, Shang-Chi's appearance was somewhat wretched, and he was panting heavily. He only had about 70% of his strength left, and his battle prowess was greatly reduced. However, Qin Yun was slightly weaker than him. Under normal circumstances, Qin Yun would not be his match. But now, Shang-Chi's condition was not good, and he could not defeat Qin Yun. Knowing this result in his heart, Shang-Chi did not waste any more effort and directly admitted defeat. As such, Qin Yun had won the battle. Shang-Chi was also given an hour to rest. Seizing this opportunity, he hurriedly consumed a divine pill to suppress his injuries and recover his divine power. An hour later, he had recovered a lot and continued to challenge Zhenhong. This was Zhenhong's first challenge, but it was also Shang-Chi's last battle. Everyone expected that this would be an exciting battle. As expected, on the arena, the two of them displayed their unparalleled talents and performed all kinds of magnificent and powerful secret skills. Although they had only exchanged more than 40 blows, the outcome was decided. But every blow was brilliant and magnificent, causing the hearts of the millions of deity clan members to sway, and they were emotional. This was especially true for Zhen Hong's dragon race techniques, which were incomparably beautiful and powerful. They pierced through the heavens and were extremely powerful. But it was a pity. In the end, the result was not satisfactory. Even after she had used her trump card and entered a state of rage, becoming 1,000 feet tall dragon god, she still could not defeat Shang-Chi. After all, she was only a lower Sir God a few days ago. After breaking through to a middle Sir God, she had not mastered the dragon tribe unique skill for long, and was not proficient enough to use it freely. As for Shang-Chi, he had reached level 6 Sir God 20 years ago. And 300 years ago, he had broken through to level 4 Sir God and become a middle Sir God. In comparison, Shang-Chi's strength was more profound and he had more battle experience. He was also more proficient in the use of various super skills and secret skills. Zhen Hong's defeat was not unjustified. Of course, in fact, she still had 2 trump cards that she had not used for a long time. If she used those 2 trump cards, she would definitely be able to defeat Shang-Chi. However, the price of using those 2 trump cards was too high. Even if she defeated Shang-Chi, she would be severely injured. Next, she would definitely be defeated miserably when she faced Gu Chunfeng, Shi Yuanlong, Qin Yun and the others. After weighing the pros and cons, Zhen Hong chose to preserve her strength and admitted defeat to Shang-Chi. After the battle, the third prince announced Shang-Chi's results. 6 wins and 1 loss. In addition to the match where he was challenged by Ji Tianqing and admitted defeat in public, it was 6 wins and 2 losses. This result was already very impressive, second only to Ji Tianqing's 7 consecutive victories. Then Zhen Hong went up the stage to challenge again. She challenged 6 people: Gu Chunfeng, Shi Yuanlong, Qin Yun, Ziman Luo and the others. She would definitely not challenge Ji Tianqing. She had already been defeated by Shang-Chi, and there was no need for her to challenge him again. The third prince announced that Zhen Hong had automatically won 3 consecutive victories. Her challenge targets were only Gu Chunfeng and the other 2. Her opponents went up the stage one after another and fought with her on the stage. In the first round, she defeated Gu Chunfeng with 9 moves from the Dragon Tribe. In the second round, she defeated Shi Yuanlong with 8 moves. In the third round, Qin Yun's strength was preserved and he was in good condition. Zhen Hong spent 100 breaths of time and used 12 moves from the Dragon Tribe to defeat Qin Yun. Her challenge had ended. The third prince announced that her results were also 6 wins and 2 losses. When they heard the results, the crowd cheered and exclaimed. Many people were shocked and they could not believe it. Before the divine blood ceremony this time, she was just a nameless maid captain. Now she was a top genius who was the focus of everyone's attention, and she was almost on par with Shang-Chi. After today, her name and deeds would definitely spread out of Monarch City and Bloodflame Holy Kingdom. Even though the challenge had to continue, the limelight had been stolen by Ji Tianqing, Shang-Chi and Zhen Hong. Even though Gu Chunfeng, Shi Yuanlong and the other 2 went up the stage to fight, it did not cause much of a stir. After 2 hours, the challenges were all over. The third prince and second prince announced the final rankings. This year's Divine Blood ceremony has come to a successful end. In the arena competition this time, everyone had witnessed peerlessly brilliant spars and witnessed the birth of miracles. For our Blood Flame Divine Kingdom to be able to produce so many outstanding geniuses, it's truly a blessing to the Divine Kingdom and its people. I will now announce the final rankings of the Fighting Ring competition. The first place belonged to the strongest person who had won 7 consecutive victories, Tianxing. The second place belongs to Shang-Chi, who had won 6 consecutive victories and lost 2. The third place belongs to Zhen Hong, who had also won 6 consecutive victories and lost 2. The fourth place belongs to Qin Yun. The fifth place belongs to Gu Chunfeng. The sixth place belongs to Shi Yuanlong. The seventh place belongs to. The last 3 places belong to Ziman Luo, Shi Yunxiao and Zhuo Tianqi. After all, they had ended up in the most miserable state. 2 of them had been seriously injured and 1 had died. Chapter 3058. The final ranking did not mean the end of the Divine Blood ceremony. Not only that, But the most sacred and exciting moment had arrived. The third prince held the god's edict and announced solemnly, "The divine nation has never been stingy with rewards and cultivation for outstanding geniuses of the divine path. The top 10 geniuses are not only qualified to enter the blood flame secret realm and receive the baptism of the blood flame sacred tree. The royal family has also taken out nearly 100 billion worth of resources and treasures from the treasury to reward the top 10 geniuses as a sign of recognition and encouragement." Then, he announced the list of rewards for the top 10 geniuses. The 10th place had the least rewards while the first place had the most amazing rewards. The Flame Wolf Youth, who was ranked 10th, only received 2 billion God Stones. The 5th place Gu Chunfeng received 10 billion worth of resources and 2 sets of divine armor. The third-ranked Zhenhong not only received 20 billion God Stones worth of cultivation resources, but he also received a set of armor and a divine saber. As for Ji Tianqing, he received 30 billion God Stones as well as 6 monarch high-grade divine weapons. Such generous rewards caused everyone to cheer and scream. Countless people were green with envy. Soon, the 2 captains of the imperial army carried the golden treasure chests onto the stage. The 2 princes opened the treasure chests and took out 10 divine rings to reward Ji Tianqing and the others. The atmosphere in the square immediately reached its peak. Millions of people of the divine race rejoiced as they excitedly discussed and exclaimed. Zhenhong was so excited that he could not control himself. He was extremely grateful to Ji Tianqing. She admitted that she had never seen so many God Stones, elixirs and resources in her life. If Ji Tianqing had not helped her rebirth, she might not have had the chance to own such a huge fortune in her life. She held the divine ring with both hands and kissed it excitedly. Then she gave the divine ring to Ji Tianqing. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing and Ning Xiyuan were stunned. They did not understand. Zhenhong quickly explained, "Young master, whether it's the honor or the reward, everything I have is given to me by you. Please accept this reward. Otherwise, I won't be able to rest easy." Her mind was simple. Being able to awaken the dragon god's bloodline and obtain such an honor, as well as being qualified to receive the sacred tree's baptism, was already extremely fortunate. She didn't dare to monopolize such a generous reward. Understanding her intention, Ji Tianqing put on a smile and comforted her. "For me, more than 20 billion worth of resources and artifacts are not of much use. But for you, you just awakened your bloodline not long ago, and you urgently need to cultivate in seclusion for a long time. You need cultivation resources the most right now. So it's best for you to keep these rewards." Ji Tianqing had never lacked cultivation resources. He already had 30 billion divine stones and various other resources stored in his interspatial ring. Moreover, the heaven-mending pearl also had the 5 elements world, which could continuously produce origin stones. In addition to the 30 billion plus reward he had just received, he would not lack cultivation resources for many years to come. What he really lacked was a godly item like the blood flame sacred tree. Zhenhong still insisted on giving the reward to Ji Tianqing. Ning Xiyuan also tried to persuade her. Only then did she gradually give up on the idea. She anxiously accepted the divine ring. The rewards were given out. Only the top few geniuses remained. They would enter the blood flame secret realm later to receive the baptism of the sacred tree. It was time for everyone else to leave the arena. Not only the million God race clansmen on the plaza, but also the countless nobles and experts on the 4 viewing platforms left one after another. After all, the blood flame secret realm was a forbidden ground. Without the king's permission, no one could enter. No one knew what happened to the geniuses in the secret realm. On the way out of the plaza, countless God race citizens were still whispering to each other and reminiscing about the exciting battle. A full 2 hours later, the huge and crowded crowd gradually left the plaza and merged into the royal city. At this time, the 2 princes led Ji Tianqing and the others towards the royal palace in the north. The group flew through the sky and quickly entered the royal palace. They landed outside the Soul Prayer Hall. The black brick and red tile Soul Prayer Hall was over 10,000 feet tall and majestic. However, its aura was too solemn and dignified, causing one's heart to feel heavy and oppressed. Compared to the golden and dazzling palaces around it, it was out of place. Normally, the Soul Prayer Hall was closed for a long period of time. It would only be opened when major priest activities were held, or when the divine blood ceremony was held. This was because the entrance to the blood flame secret realm was in the depths of the soul prayer hall. The hall was heavily guarded. There were also hidden sentries underground and in the palace. They were all Surgat experts. Not only that, but the soul prayer hall had also set up many top-grade divine arrays. Its defense was very strong. After the group arrived, they stood in the plaza outside the hall. Ji Tianqing, Zhan Hong, and the others waited patiently. The two princes entered the hall and took over from the imperial guards guarding the royal palace. There was no other way. The 800 imperial guards guarding the soul prayer hall and the Dark Moon commander were all under the direct command of the king. Even the two princes had no right to command the imperial guards and the Dark Moon commander. While waiting, Ji Tianqing secretly observed the situation of the soul prayer hall's defenses. He firmly remembered the positions of the sentries and the distribution of the defensive arrays. This was because the plan he had been planning for a long time was about to be realized. Ever since he learned about the Blood Flame sacred tree in the Sky Snow County city, he had already made up his mind. He was going to do something big, something that would shock the entire Blood Flame divine kingdom. Everything he had done in the past month was to pave the way for today. The closer he was to success, the more he looked forward to it. However, he wasn't impatient. Instead, he became calmer and more careful. Shang-Chi, Zhan Hong, and the others didn't know that Ji Tianqing had other thoughts. Everyone was filled with joy and expectation as they curiously sized up the soul prayer hall. Feeling the solemn atmosphere in the royal palace, everyone stood obediently. They didn't dare to move or make a ruckus. Occasionally, they would communicate with each other through voice transmissions, sharing their joy and expectations. Their focus was on questions like, what does the Blood Flame sacred tree look like? Is the secret realm dangerous? How do we receive the baptism of the sacred tree? Naive people like them couldn't imagine that the cold and low-key expert beside them would soon shock the royal palace and become the public enemy of the Blood Flame divine kingdom. After a while, the two princes finished negotiating with the Dark Moon commander and returned to the square. Everyone, please remain silent. Line up according to your ranking and follow this king into the great hall. The third prince waved his hand to signal for everyone to be quiet. He warned with a serious expression, after entering the soul prayer hall, remember not to look around or walk around casually. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask and don't touch what you shouldn't touch. This king will bring you into the secret realm and arrange places for you to wait for the baptism of the sacred tree. This is a great opportunity, but you only have 3 days. You must grasp it well. If you miss it, you will regret it for the rest of your life. After listening, the young geniuses nodded to show that they understood. The third prince revealed a satisfied smile and led everyone into the great hall. Chapter 3059. The soul-praying palace was dimly lit and visibility was less than 10 zhang. Everyone walked in the palace and felt chills all over their bodies. In the spacious and quiet hall, there were many statues standing quietly in the dark corners. On the cold walls, there were many ancient and strange carvings and pictures. The young geniuses could feel that there were many pairs of eyes staring at them. However, they remembered the third prince's instructions and did not dare to look around or walk around. They also did not dare to use their soul consciousness. There was only one exception, and that was Ji Tianqing. On the surface, his expression was indifferent as he followed behind the third prince, his eyes looking straight ahead. However, in reality, he had secretly released his soul consciousness to check the situation inside the soul-praying palace. The 20 overseer gods hiding in the dark did not notice his soul consciousness and did not find anything unusual. However, in a secret room deep inside the soul-praying palace, there was an ancient bronze lamp that was shining with a pale blue light. The purple-robed man sitting cross-legged in front of the lamp had been meditating and using his soul consciousness to monitor the geniuses. Suddenly, he noticed that the ancient bronze lamp had lit up. He immediately frowned and shouted angrily, "Bastard! They look obedient, but they are secretly prying into the secrets of the temple. Which bastard is so arrogant and bold?" As he spoke, the purple-robed man used a secret technique to check the soul consciousness of Ji Tianqing and the others. At this moment, a pair of dark red eyes lit up in the dark corner of the secret room. A hoarse and deep voice was heard as he said slowly, Qianma, there is no need to check. It must be that black-haired kid. The pair of eyes were cold and indifferent but had a high and mighty aura. The owner was a haggard old man. His hunched body was covered by a large black robe. He blended into the darkness and no one could see his face. However, his aura was enough to make all the Sir Gods afraid. The purple-robed man lowered his head respectfully and said, Dark Moon Ancestor, are you talking about Tianqing, who is the strongest? He has already won the championship and is qualified to go under the sacred tree to receive the most powerful divine power. Why did he want to pry into the secrets of the divine hall? Could it be that he has always been so arrogant and overbearing that he doesn't care about the rules of the divine hall or the dignity of the divine nation? The black-robed old man, who was called the Dark Moon Ancestor, nodded slightly and said in an indifferent tone, That's right. This person has no sense of belonging to Scandinavia and will never work for us. His Majesty has been paying attention to him for a long time. Ah! The purple-robed man was even more surprised. He asked in confusion, if that's the case, why did the monarch allow him to participate in the competition and even win first place? He received so many resources and treasures, and was even baptized by the sacred tree. But he couldn't serve the kingdom of God. The black-robed old man said slowly, You don't have to get to the bottom of it. It's not important. This kid had made a grave mistake that could not be undone. His fate has already been decided by His Majesty. We just need to wait and see. The purple-robed man hurriedly nodded and said respectfully, Thank you for your guidance, Ancestor. I understand. Then he stopped using his divine abilities and secret techniques and stopped monitoring Ji Tianqing. Instead, he focused his attention on the others. 15 minutes later, the third prince led Ji Tianqing and the others into the underground of the Soul Prayer Palace. They came to a dark and cold hall with a radius of 3,000 meters. The floor of the hall was engraved with mysterious divine array patterns. In the corners of the hall, there were 8 ancient beast statues that were also glowing with a dim blood-red light. The entire hall was a large array that had already been activated and was in operation. In the middle of the hall, there was a 30-meter-tall door of light surrounded by blood-red flames. It emitted a mysterious and majestic aura. Without a doubt, this was the portal to the Blood Flame secret realm. The Blood Flame secret realm was not under the temple. It was deep under the palace, hidden in an alternate dimension. Apart from the monarchs, no one knew the exact location of the Blood Flame secret realm. Only 2 or 3 people had mastered the method to open the entrance to the secret realm. Before entering the secret realm, the third prince reminded them again, Everyone, continue to maintain the formation. After entering the secret realm with me, do not make any noise or walk around. I will arrange places for you. You only need to focus on cultivation and receive the baptism of the sacred tree. If anyone blasphemes the secret realm or the sacred tree, or makes a mistake, they will be expelled from the secret realm immediately. Shang-Chi, Zhanhong, Gu Chunfeng, and the others quickly nodded to show that they understood. The third prince did not say anything else and stepped into the blood flame door first. Ji Tianqing followed closely behind. Then Shang-Chi and Zhanhong entered one after another. Swoosh! Swoosh! The blood flame door kept flashing with red light and swallowed everyone's figures. Everyone only saw a flash of blood-red light before they entered a special dimension. This was a very vast and dark dimension that was at least 10,000 miles wide. Under their feet was a dark and cold ground covered with ancient rocks. The air was cold and there were wisps of blood-red chi floating in the air. Once everyone breathed in, they felt their blood strengthen and their blood flow accelerate. In the depths of the darkness ahead, there was a huge blood-red fireball hanging in the air like the sun. It was the blood-red light emitted by that fireball that brought light to the dark dimension. There was no need for the third prince to introduce it. Everyone had already guessed that it was the national treasure, the Bloodfire Divine Tree. The third prince led everyone and walked silently on the wasteland. After walking for 3,000 miles, they finally reached the edge of the Blood Flame Sacred Tree. The dark dimension in front of them was filled with blood-red flames and was full of divine power. Beneath the feet of the crowd, a huge platform of 1,000 feet appeared. The platform was made of all kinds of divine stones and was dazzling purple in color. It contained a vast amount of divine power. The third prince pointed at the platform and introduced it to everyone. There are 10 divine blood platforms in the secret realm. Each one is taller than the last and is getting closer to the sacred tree. This is the outermost divine blood platform, 3,000 miles away from the sacred tree. Yinlang, this is your spot. You will cultivate here. In 3 days, the sacred tree will send down divine light 9 times. How much you can absorb will depend on your luck. Yinlang, who was ranked 10th, nodded solemnly. He then sat down cross-legged and started cultivating. He only had one chance to enter the blood flame secret realm in his life. He cherished this opportunity and did not want to waste a single second. After designating Yinlang's position, the third prince led everyone forward. After walking for 300 miles, they came across a second platform. This platform was closer to the sacred tree and was 3,000 feet tall. However, Shi Yunxiao, who was ranked 9th, was already dead. The group did not stop and continued to move forward. They passed by the 8th and 7th divine blood platforms and stopped at the 6th one. Shi Yuanlong, who was ranked 6th, stopped and sat down to cultivate. Next, Gu Chunfeng was arranged to sit on the 5th divine blood platform and Qin Yun sat on the 4th. Mobile version update website M. Chapter 3060. There were fewer and fewer people behind the third prince. When they reached the third divine blood altar, Zhenhong stopped here. This divine blood altar was 1,500 feet tall and contained even more divine power. It was at least 6 times taller than the outermost divine blood altar. Moreover, standing on this altar, one could clearly see the blood flame sacred tree. It was a gigantic tree with a radius of 150 miles. Its entire body was translucent like red jade, and it stood on the highest divine blood altar. Towering blood-red divine flames coiled around the lush canopy that blotted out the sky and the sun, and they emanated divine energy fluctuations that caused one's heart to palpitate. From afar, the trunk of the sacred tree was as thick as a palace. It looked especially domineering and majestic. Zhenhong was just standing there, but her blood was boiling, and her face was red with sweat. The air around her was filled with blood-colored divine flames, and they were actively drilling into her body. Even if she did nothing, her dragon god bloodline was rapidly strengthening, and her strength was constantly increasing. It is indeed worthy of being called the most mysterious and mystical secret realm. Cultivating here for 3 days is better than cultivating outside for 100 years. She praised from the bottom of her heart. She didn't need the third prince's instructions and sat down to cultivate. This wasn't an exaggeration. The divine power absorbed in 3 days in the blood flame secret realm might not be as good as cultivating outside for 100 years. However, the baptism of the sacred tree would strengthen one's bloodline and greatly increase one's talent, comprehension, and aptitude. This was an effect that couldn't be achieved even if one cultivated outside for 100 years. After Zhenhong settled down, the third prince led Ji Tianqing and Shangqi forward. After walking for another 150 miles, the 3 of them stopped at the second divine blood altar. This place was closer to the sacred tree, and the blood-colored divine flames gathered like an ocean, making it even more effective. Shangqi was so excited that his blood was boiling, and he couldn't wait any longer. Without needing the third prince to say anything, he already sat down and focused on cultivating. Seeing this, the third prince looked at Ji Tianqing and said with a smile, "Tianqing, let's go." Ji Tianqing pointed at the tallest divine blood platform 300 kilometers away. He said, "It's just a few steps. I'll go by myself. Don't worry about me." The third prince thought for a moment and nodded with a smile. "That's good too. Go and practice by yourself. Don't waste time. I have already received the baptism of the sacred tree. My talent and bloodline have been strengthened to the limit. If you stay here for a while longer, not only will you not be able to increase your strength, you will also be in danger of damaging your foundation." After listening to his explanation, Ji Tianqing finally understood why a person could only be baptized by the sacred tree once. The third prince bade him farewell and turned to leave, quickly disappearing into the blood and fire. Ji Tianqing walked forward alone. He climbed up the first divine blood platform at a steady pace and arrived at the foot of the sacred tree. This divine blood altar was the core of the blood flame secret realm. At the same time, it was also the base of the blood flame sacred tree. The platform was 3,000 feet tall and had a radius of 500 miles. It was entirely purple with a hint of black. After being nurtured by the blood flame sacred tree for tens of thousands of years, the divine power it contained had already reached a terrifying level. Billions of thick roots extended from the bottom of the towering sacred tree and pierced into the divine blood altar, firmly connecting the two together. Ji Tianqing was not in a hurry to practice. He walked around the towering sacred tree on the platform and observed it attentively. The sacred tree was so close that he could unveil the mysterious halo of the sacred tree and see it more clearly. The surface of the tree trunk was slightly bloated and curved. It was covered with dark red veins, like the blood vessels and meridians of a human. Anyone who saw it would believe that the blood flame sacred tree was not an ordinary object. It might even be alive. Although the sacred tree was big, it only had a trunk and branches. There were no leaves. However, when Ji Tianqing looked up, he saw that there were 9 basin-sized divine fruits hidden in the tree crown that covered the sky. Each divine fruit looked like a gourd. They were as exquisite as red jade, and blood-red divine fire flowed on the surface. They looked mysterious and alluring. Ji Tianqing stared at the 9 divine fruits and could not help but smile in relief. Those 9 divine fruits are the crystallization of the entire sacred tree. They contain the purest divine power. It seems that they have grown for at least 1,000 years to reach this size. Only the champion of the previous tournament of fighting rings is qualified to come under the tree and have the chance to find the divine fruits in the tree crown. However, other than the monarch, no one would dare to touch them, right? He muttered to himself, then waved his hand and shot out a beam of golden light toward one of the divine fruits. Swoosh! The golden light was like a knife. It cut off the branches on the divine fruit and wrapped it up, then flew back to Ji Tianqing. After successfully plucking a divine fruit, Ji Tianqing was not in a hurry to devour it. He stored it in the divine pagoda for safekeeping. Then, he waved his right hand and shot out beams of golden light. Swoosh! Swoosh! In just a few breaths' time, all 9 divine fruits were taken by him. Not a single one was left. He stopped contentedly and looked at the sacred tree with a smile. He muttered to himself, "The legend of the Bloodfire Kingdom is true. This tree is indeed formed by the blood souls of millions of deities. 10,000 years ago, the sacred tree was only a few thousand feet tall. Now it has grown to 100,000 feet tall. However, this sacred tree is restricted by the laws of heaven. It can only be a quasi-king level sacred tree. It can't be a true king level sacred tree. What a pity! If it was a true king level sacred tree, I would definitely move it away and plant and cultivate it. By then, with the help of the sacred tree and divine fruits, Yao Yao and Ku will be able to break through to the God-King realm." Ji Tianqing sighed regretfully. However, he thought about it again and let it go. Fortunately, the Bloodfire Sacred Tree was only a quasi-king level divine item. It could not cultivate a God-King powerhouse. If it was a true king level sacred tree, it would have already cultivated a God-King powerhouse. The Bloodfire Kingdom would have also annexed the Great Yin Empire and become the overlord of the northern region. If that was the case, he would not have the chance to obtain the Bloodfire Sacred Tree. Forget it. A quasi-king level sacred tree is enough. It is a top treasure for me now. After I obtain this sacred tree and devour it, I will be able to recover to the peak of the Divine Lord realm. I only have 3 days. I have to hurry. After Ji Tianqing made up his mind, he got rid of all distracting thoughts and sat cross-legged under the divine tree. He began to cultivate. Shang-Chi, Zhenhong and the others were cultivating their own cultivation techniques. They absorbed the divine power and blood flames of heaven and earth and waited for the divine light of the sacred tree to descend. Ji Tianqing was different. He used the devour divine power. Black light gushed out of his palms and turned into 2 black vortexes. Swoosh! Swoosh! The 2 black holes crazily devoured the blood flames and divine power, quickly stealing the power of the sacred tree. However, 15 minutes later, Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows. He used the Devour divine power to steal the power of the sacred tree 100 times faster than the others. However, it was still not enough. The power of the Bloodfire sacred tree was too vast. Even if he kept devouring it, it would take him 10 years to completely devour it. Therefore, he decided to use the Heaven-Mending Orb to uproot the sacred tree and move it away. He would move it into the Divine Pagoda or the Sword World. Wouldn't it be perfect if he refined it slowly? Chapter 3061. Just do it. Ji Tianqing activated the power of the Heaven-Mending Orb and released 2 beams of pure white light from his palms. Swoosh! The 2 beams of light flew towards the sacred tree and quickly wrapped around its thick trunk. Then Ji Tianqing unleashed a powerful force that could move mountains, trying to uproot the sacred tree. Crisp sounds kept bursting out, and the divine tree that covered the sky kept swaying. Millions of branches were swaying. Even the divine blood altar under Ji Tianqing's feet shook violently and kept flashing with purple light. The bloody flame sacred tree was shaken by Ji Tianqing. He was excited and activated the Heaven-Mending Orb to release even more power, trying to uproot the sacred tree. However, no matter how hard he tried, no matter how much power he released, the bloody flame sacred tree shook violently, but it couldn't leave the divine blood altar. The divine tree's gigantic trunk and billions of branches all lit up with an extremely dazzling blood-red light, erupting with a terrifying power. The divine blood altar under Ji Tianqing's feet also lit up with purple fire and released a power that could suppress the world, firmly imprisoning the bloody flame sacred tree. Not only that, he also clearly sensed that the 10 divine blood altars around the sacred tree were releasing a violent power. The 10 divine blood altars formed a huge array that gathered the power of the entire bloody flame secret realm and firmly imprisoned the sacred tree. This way, the bloody flame sacred tree was sealed by the entire secret realm and couldn't be uprooted, unless he could destroy the 10 divine blood altars or destroy the entire secret realm. Otherwise, it was almost impossible for him to move the sacred tree. Understanding this, Ji Tianqing wasn't surprised, just a bit regretful. He had no choice but to give up on the idea of moving the sacred tree. After all, the 10 divine blood altars were burning with red fire and formed a divine array. Shang-Chi, Zhanhong, Gu Chunfeng and the others were cultivating on the divine blood altars. They sensed that something was wrong, so they stopped cultivating and looked around in confusion. If they forcefully moved the sacred tree, they would be discovered. Moreover, the Dark Moon Commander and the others were monitoring the situation in the secret realm. Once Ji Tianqing destroyed the divine blood altar or forcefully attacked the secret realm, he would definitely be discovered by them. At that time, before he could move the sacred tree away, he would be besieged by countless powerhouses. The Blood Flame Divine Kingdom's imperial palace was filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. The number of high divine lords exceeded at least 10. With Ji Tianqing's current strength, it was impossible for him to fight his way out of the encirclement. It would be very difficult for him to leave the palace alive. Forget it. I'll devour the power of the sacred tree first and increase my strength. Moving the sacred tree rashly will only lead to a fatal disaster. Ji Tianqing sighed silently. He could only sit cross-legged under the sacred tree and continue to devour the power of the sacred tree. However, it was different this time. Not only did he use the devoured divine power, but he also used the power of the Heaven-Mending Pearl to frantically absorb the power of the sacred tree. Swoosh! Swoosh! His palms turned into 2 black holes, constantly devouring the blood flame and divine power to strengthen himself. There was also a pure white vortex on his forehead, which was devouring the power of the sacred tree at a terrifying speed. That was the Heaven-Mending Pearl, which was devouring divine power with all its might. The current Heaven-Mending Pearl was not powerful enough, and its power was less than 20% of its peak. However, it was still a king-grade divine item and had unlimited power. As long as it was given enough time, it would definitely be able to devour the entire blood flame sacred tree. Just like that, the divine blood altar fell into silence. The power was withdrawn, and the purple light also disappeared. The blood flame sacred tree also stopped trembling and returned to silence. Shang-Chi, Zhanhong, and the others did not notice anything amiss. Seeing that the divine blood altar and the sacred tree had returned to silence, they dispelled their doubts and continued to cultivate. Ji Tianqing used the devoured divine power to absorb the power of the blood flame sacred tree, which was 100 times faster than Shang-Chi and the others. Meanwhile, the heaven-mending pearl devoured the power of the sacred tree, 100 times faster than him. This caused a violent hurricane to blow under the sacred tree. The blood flame and divine power in all directions were devoured by the three vortexes. Even the divine blood altar and the towering divine tree had produced thousands of tiny streams that flowed into the whirlpool. The power of the blood flame sacred tree was quickly draining away. Originally, the sacred tree would send down 9 beams of divine light within 3 days. On average, the sacred tree would scatter light every 8 hours to baptize the geniuses. However, something strange happened. Everyone cultivated for 10 hours, but the sacred tree did not scatter any divine light. It was not until the 6th hour that the sacred tree shone brightly and released a magnificent divine power ripple. Whoosh! With the blood flame sacred tree as the center, a dazzling blood-colored divine light spread out in all directions, covering an area of 30,000 miles. The mysterious divine light could cleanse everyone's impurities, strengthen their divine body and divine soul, and increase their talent and comprehension. In addition to the divine light baptism, the sacred tree also released thousands of purple divine power ripples that spread out like ripples. Those divine power ripples entered the bodies of the geniuses, causing their divine power to skyrocket and their strength to increase by leaps and bounds. Of course, the closer they were to the sacred tree, the greater the benefits. Whether it was the divine light or the divine power ripples, they would weaken as they spread out. Ji Tianqing sat under the sacred tree and benefited the most. His strength increased the fastest. As for the geniuses who were further away, their gains were greatly reduced. Especially the flame wolf youth who sat on the 10th divine blood altar, who was the furthest away from the blood flame sacred tree. After being baptized by the sacred tree, the effects were not obvious, and his strength did not increase by much. This made him puzzled. He frowned gloomily and thought to himself, before entering the secret realm, the third prince said that being baptized by the sacred tree was equivalent to 10 years of hard training. But I only gained so little from being baptized by the sacred tree? Even if I'm in the outermost circle and the furthest away from the sacred tree, it shouldn't be like this. Could it be that my talent is too low? Thinking of this, the flame wolf youth became even more gloomy, and his eyes dimmed. But he could not imagine that the truth was that the blood flame sacred tree's power had weakened. Ji Tianqing and the heaven-mending orb crazily devoured the sacred tree's power. Not only did it delay the baptism by the sacred tree, but it also weakened the effects by half. Unfortunately, it was the first time these geniuses had entered the secret realm and received the baptism by the sacred tree. Even if the sacred tree's power had weakened and the baptism's effects weakened, they could not detect it. The first baptism by the sacred tree lasted for a full 100 breaths of time before it stopped. Under the sacred tree, Ji Tianqing, who was sitting cross-legged on the divine blood altar, emitted a golden light all over his body, and an incomparably holy and domineering aura fluctuated. He had finally broken through to the 4th-level Divine Lord realm, leaping to become a middle-level Divine Lord. When Shang-Chi, Zhan Hong and the others saw the scene of him breaking through, they all revealed shocked expressions and exclaimed in their hearts. They did not expect that Ji Tianqing would break through on the spot after just one baptism by the sacred tree. And they were still very far away from breaking through. Their greatest gain was that their exhausted bodies and souls had recovered to their peak condition. The injuries they had suffered in the arena battles had also been healed by the sacred tree's baptism. Mobile version update website M. Chapter 3062. After the sacred tree's baptism ended, the divine blood altar fell silent. The geniuses were a little disappointed, and their emotions were complicated. Of course, they didn't doubt that the power of the bloody flame sacred tree had weakened. Firstly, there was no comparison, so they didn't know who was stronger. Secondly, Ji Tianqing had broken through on the spot, and everyone had seen it. If the sacred tree's power had weakened, causing their strength to not increase much, then how did Ji Tianqing break through? In the end, they could only blame themselves for not being talented enough. Look at young Master Tianxing. He was indeed the #1 genius in the kingdom. The difference was too big. Everyone was depressed, but they could only work harder to cultivate and wait for the next sacred tree baptism. Unknowingly, another 12 hours had passed. Ji Tianxing was still using the devouring divine power, using the 2 black holes to absorb the power of the sacred tree. After breaking through to stage 4, he quickly solidified his foundation of the divine Tao. Now he had accumulated infinite divine power and was moving towards stage 5. The white light vortex on his forehead had already expanded to a radius of 100 feet, like an abyss, crazily devouring the power of the sacred tree. The heaven-mending pearl was indeed a supreme artifact. In the past day it had devoured 100 times more divine power than Ji Tianxing. Even so, it had only recovered 30% of its power. However, the power of the bloody flame sacred tree had obviously weakened. The appearance of the sacred tree didn't change, but the blood-colored divine flames on its hundreds of millions of branches had dimmed. Logically speaking, the second sacred tree baptism should have arrived. However, the geniuses continued to wait for 6 hours before the sacred tree baptism arrived. Swoosh! The towering sacred tree bloomed with divine light, covering a radius of more than 20,000 miles and releasing millions of divine power ripples. The baptism and divine power ripples spread out with the sacred tree as the center. During the process, it kept weakening until it completely disappeared at the 10th divine blood altar. Ji Tianxing was unaffected and continued to focus on his cultivation. Shangqi, Zhanhong, Qin Yun and the rest realized that the effect of the sacred tree's baptism was weaker than the previous time. As for Yan Lang, who was on the 10th divine blood altar at the outermost circle, he was so depressed that he was about to cry. The second baptism of the sacred tree was about to happen. The blood-red divine light that blotted out the sky finally flew towards him as it continued to weaken. However, when the divine light reached the 10th altar, it completely dissipated. He was just a few miles away from being baptized by the divine light. The divine power ripples that filled the sky also dissipated and disappeared as soon as they reached his feet. When he saw this scene, the flame wolf youth really wanted to cry but had no tears. Sacred tree, I was wrong. During the first divine light baptism, I shouldn't have complained that the effect was too weak. This time I can't even receive the baptism of the divine light. Could it be that the sacred tree has a spirit and this is your punishment for me? I won't dare to complain anymore. I just hope that the next time you release the divine light baptism, let me have a little bit of it. Thinking back to the previous divine light baptism, although the effect wasn't great, it was still extremely blissful. The flame wolf youth pulled a long face and could only sit on the divine blood altar and cultivate even harder. At the same time he prayed silently in his heart, hoping that the sacred tree could hear his thoughts. The next divine light baptism would at least benefit him a little. It was better than nothing. Time passed quietly. Soon another day had passed. There were a total of 3 days and 2 days had already passed. There were a total of 9 divine light baptisms, but only 2 had happened and the third baptism had yet to appear. Shangqi, Qin Yun and the rest were all muttering in their hearts. Not only that, they also clearly felt that the blood flame and divine power in the air had weakened by more than half. If they continued to cultivate like before, they would gain less and their strength would increase slower. Everyone was puzzled and secretly looked at the blood flame sacred tree in the sky. The blood-red divine light that blotted out the sky dimmed a little. Even the size of the blood flame and divine light had shrunk significantly. This scene made everyone even more puzzled and anxious. What's going on? The power of the sacred tree is weakening? Didn't they say that there would be 9 divine light baptisms? 2 days have passed and there hasn't even been a third baptism. Before entering the mystery land, everyone said that this was a great opportunity. Cultivating here for 3 days and receiving 9 divine light baptisms would be equivalent to cultivating outside for 100 years. But now, the harvest is not even comparable to cultivating for 30 years. Why is this happening? Is there a problem with the blood flame sacred tree? It shouldn't be. The sacred tree is the treasure of the country. How could there be a problem? Could it be caused by Tianxing? He is the most powerful and talented and he is sitting under the sacred tree. Perhaps he has seized too much divine power and snatched away the portion that belongs to us? The young geniuses were all guessing and worried. But they remembered the third prince's instructions and did not dare to move around or ask. At this moment, the highest divine blood altar lit up with a golden light that shot into the sky. It was sacred and majestic. In fact, 3 golden dragons could be vaguely seen flying and roaring within the golden light that soared into the sky. A formidable aura came from the distance. The young geniuses were shocked and jealous when they saw this scene. The same thought flashed through their minds. Tianqing broke through again. Oh my God! He broke through 2 realms in just 2 days? Isn't he a 7th heaven upper divine lord? If he broke through twice, wouldn't he reach the 9th heaven realm? He reached the 9th heaven realm from the 7th heaven realm in 2 days? How is this possible? Even the most monstrous genius in the kingdom of gods would have to cultivate for thousands of years to achieve this. Crazy. We must be crazy. We might as well cultivate for 30 years instead of 2 days here. But he broke through 2 realms in just 2 days. Could it be that the blood flame sacred tree only baptized and blessed him? Besides being shocked, Zhan Hong was happy and proud for Ji Tianqing. The other young geniuses were shocked by Ji Tianqing and jealousy grew in their hearts. They could not accept this result. The contrast was too big and it made them lose their minds. But no matter how jealous and angry they were, what could they do? They could not run to the sacred tree and fight with Ji Tianqing for a spot, right? Or blame him with righteous indignation. How could they blame others for being monstrous when they were not capable? The geniuses could not do such a thing and they could not bring themselves to do it. Moreover, if they did that, they would be violating the rules of the royal family and would be expelled from the mystic territory immediately. Helpless, they could only suppress their anger and jealousy. After an entire hour, everyone's emotions finally calmed down, and they continued to meditate and cultivate. Fortunately, the 3rd divine light baptism came at this time. Swoosh! Swoosh! The dazzling blood-red divine light and thousands of purple ripples spread in all directions. Chapter 3063. The 3rd divine light baptism finally came. The few geniuses who were indignant were finally comforted. They quickly focused and accepted the divine light baptism to refine the divine power ripples. But this time the effect of the divine light baptism was even weaker. The range of the divine light and divine power ripples had shrunk to a radius of 20,000 miles. The flame wolf youth in the outermost circle saw the divine light and divine power ripples dissipate 10,000 miles away from him. In other words, the 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th divine blood altar did not receive the divine light baptism. The flame wolf youth almost broke down. With tears in his eyes, he looked at the bloody flame sacred tree 30,000 miles away, and knelt down on the ground. Sacred tree, why are you so heartless and unwilling to show me any mercy? I am loyal to the kingdom and I respect you even more. I treat you like a believer. But you... why are you doing this? The flame wolf youth was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. He even wanted to turn around and leave in a fit of anger. But he quickly suppressed this impulsive thought. Not to mention that he could not leave on his own. Even if he could leave the mystic land, he would be slandered and slandered by the world. Not only that, the royal family would also punish him. This was blasphemy against the sacred tree and his ancestors. The flame wolf youth could only endure the grief and pain and continue to meditate and cultivate. Since he could not receive the divine light baptism, he could only absorb the scattered bloody flame and divine power. As for the effect, it was better than cultivating outside. It was better than nothing. Shang-Chi, Zhanhong, Qin Yuan, Gu Chunfeng and Shi Yuanlong had just received the divine light baptism, and were fully focused on cultivating. At the same time, Ji Tianqing, who was under the sacred tree, slowly opened his eyes. He had just broken through to the 5th level of the Divine Lord realm, and his strength had increased by several times. His current combat strength was much stronger than before. Even if he met the purple-robed elder under Prince Lian again, he would be able to defeat the 8th level Divine Lord. As his strength increased, his perception also increased rapidly. Before this, the entire blood flame secret realm was still somewhat hazy and mysterious to him. But now, when he used his divine sense to explore the secret realm, He could see through the layers of fog and touch upon many truths. He could clearly tell that this blood-flame secret realm was a quasi-king level space with a radius of 36,000 miles. Inside the secret realm, the sacred tree and the 10 divine blood altars combined into one, forming a supreme monarch-level divine formation. Unless a god-king expert came in person, no one would be able to destroy the secret realm, much less move the sacred tree. Ji Tianqing stared at the sacred tree and observed it carefully. He could see the problem. After 2 days of devouring by him and the heaven-mending orb, the sacred tree's power had weakened by 30%. The sacred tree was sentient and would instinctively protect itself by withdrawing the overflowing energy and stabilizing itself. It was supposed to release divine light 3 times a day, once every 8 hours. However, as its power was rapidly depleting, it slowed down the speed at which it released the divine light, greatly reducing the number of times it could use it. Even so, it wasn't a living being and didn't have any intelligence. It still couldn't resist the heaven-mending orb's devouring, and its power was still depleting. Ji Tianqing estimated that the heaven-mending orb would be able to devour the sacred tree in another 5 days. He checked the heaven-mending orb's situation. The heaven-mending orb had devoured 30% of the sacred tree's power, but it hadn't been purified or refined yet. It was all stored inside the divine orb. Ji Tianqing was very satisfied with this. After all, after he left the palace, he could still refine the sacred tree's power and continue to increase his strength. The divine power stored in the heaven-mending orb could help him recover to the peak of the monarch god level. Could also help Yunyao, Jiku, and the others quickly increase their strength. Now that my strength has increased by more than 10 times, I can understand the mysteries of the blood flame secret realm. The sacred tree's power has been weakened by 30%, so it's not as powerful as before. The time is finally ripe. It shouldn't be difficult for me to move the sacred tree now. After understanding the situation, Ji Tianqing weighed the pros and cons and made up his mind. There was only 1 day left, and the conditions were ripe. If he didn't take the sacred tree now, when would he? So Ji Tianqing used the power of the heaven-mending orb and sent out 2 giant white palms, which grabbed the trunk of the sacred tree tightly. Rise! With a low roar, he suddenly unleashed all of his power. The 2 blazing white palms grabbed the god tree and lifted it up with a force that could move mountains. Suddenly, the blood flame sacred tree started to shake violently again. The divine blood altar under the tree shook crazily and flashed with purple light. As Ji Tianqing continued to use his power, the divine blood altar made cracking sounds. A series of zigzagging cracks appeared on the ground and quickly spread to the surroundings. However, the blood flame sacred tree was in danger. The 10 divine blood altars immediately connected with divine power and lit up with purple light, forming a supreme-grade divine array. The array within 30,000 miles started to operate and absorbed the power of the entire secret realm. It sealed the area and suppressed the sacred tree. Ji Tianqing's power was blocked, and the blood flame sacred tree started to shake less and more steadily. It looked like he was going to fail again. However, he was confident. With a calm expression, he cast a secret technique and continuously shot out tens of thousands of beams of divine golden light towards the divine tree. Bang bang bang! Thousands of beams of divine golden light cut into the divine blood altars around the sacred tree. Suddenly, the supreme-grade divine array was cut off by the divine golden light. The power of the array was blocked and its power decreased greatly. Obviously, Ji Tianqing had already seen through the supreme-grade monarch-grade divine formation and found the veins, nodes, and key positions of the grand formation. He didn't want to waste time and slowly deciphered the array. He used the simplest and most violent method to destroy the array and weaken its power. This method was effective. The divine array that covered 30,000 miles started to operate slower and slower, and its power decreased. Even the 10 divine blood altars dimmed and started to shake violently. Several divine blood altars couldn't withstand the pull of the 2 divine powers. Huge cracks appeared on them and they started to fall apart. Kacha kacha! Bang 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 bang! Explosions and muffled sounds continued to ring out from the secret realm. The young geniuses were all awakened by this huge commotion. They stopped cultivating and checked the situation in confusion. Ji Tianqing noticed that everyone was awakened. He couldn't help but frown and mumble. Since the commotion is too big, there's no turning back. We can only do it in one go. So, he sent out 3,000 beams of divine golden light into the various nodes of the divine array. The array was severely damaged again, and its power decreased again. The power that imprisoned the sacred tree started to weaken rapidly. The divine blood altars that wrapped around the tree's roots also started to fall apart. Ji Tianqing controlled the two gigantic palms and held the divine tree firmly, uprooting it bit by bit. At this moment, just above the bloody flame sacred tree, at the highest point of the secret realm, a seven-colored divine light suddenly lit up. A domineering roar exploded like a clap of thunder. Bastard, you really are up to no good. You want to destroy the foundation of my race. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 3064. The sudden thunderous roar woke everyone up. With the appearance of the seven-colored holy light, an invisible force pressed down from the sky. Ji Tianqing, Shang-Chi, Zhen Hong and the rest opened their eyes wide and looked up at the sky. The seven-colored holy light landed on the top of the bloody flame sacred tree. A towering figure of the god clan that was thousands of feet tall stepped out of the divine light. This was a tall and sturdy man from the blood flame divine clan. He had a dignified appearance. He looked dignified with a wide forehead, a square nose and a pair of bell-like eyes that shone with a terrifying light. He wore a dark golden dragon robe and had a double dragon crown on his head. He exuded a domineering aura. Even though he was only standing on the top of the bloody flame and looking down at everyone with a majestic face, everyone could clearly feel that the area around them was covered by the supreme force. The incomparably powerful pressure caused everyone's hearts to tremble, and a deep sense of fear emerged from their souls. Immediately Shang-Chi, Qin Yun, Gu Chunfeng and the rest knelt on the ground. Everyone lowered their heads and bowed respectfully. They shouted, "The people of the Bloody Flame Holy Kingdom greet your majesty." The identity of the man in the golden robe was obvious. He was the ruler of the Bloody Flame Holy Kingdom, the current king. However, the king ignored Shang-Chi, Qin Yun and the rest. His eyes were majestic and sharp as he looked at Ji Tianqing, who was under the sacred tree. Ji Tianqing stood in the air and was still controlling the bloody flame sacred tree with his two huge palms. The divine blood stage under his feet had been torn apart and broken into pieces. The hundreds of millions of roots of the sacred tree had been exposed and were being pulled out bit by bit. Seeing this, the king did not need to say anything. The few young geniuses already understood everything. Instantly, everyone was horrified. They widened their eyes in fear and panic. Oh my God! What is he doing? Tianqing. He wants to destroy the sacred tree. That is the treasure of the Bloody Flame Holy Kingdom, the fruit of the efforts of millions of ancestors. He actually wants to uproot the entire divine tree. I really didn't expect this person to harbor such malicious intentions and be so audacious. Is he a spy from another kingdom who has infiltrated our country to destroy the sacred tree? How despicable! How can he be so despicable? Luckily, the king is wise and found out about his despicable plot and stopped him personally. No wonder we did not gain much after cultivating here for a few days. No wonder the power of the divine tree has weakened, and even the number of divine light baptisms has decreased. It's his fault. He's the main culprit. He deserves to die. Shang-Chi, Qin Yun and the rest were all shocked and angry as they exclaimed in disgust. The king's face changed and he stared at Ji Tianqing angrily. He shouted, "Bastard, you have broken through again? In just a few days your strength has increased by more than 10 times? The king, who had been majestic just a moment ago, was shocked and lost his composure. Hearing what he said, Ji Tianqing frowned and sneered. "So you have been watching me secretly for a long time?" The king was stunned and his face turned ugly. He glanced at Shang-Chi, Zhen Hong, Qin Yun and the rest and waved his hand, sending out divine light. Swoosh! The 7-colored divine light entered the few divine blood altars and activated the broken array, releasing vast spatial power. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh! A few white lights flashed and Shang-Chi, Zhen Hong and the rest were expelled from the blood flame secret realm. In the next moment, they were back in the palace and appeared in the square outside the soul-praying hall. The two princes were not present as they were busy with their own things. There were only a few dozen guards around the square. Shang-Chi, Zhen Hong and the rest looked around in confusion and did not know what to do. What is going on? Why are we out? It was the monarch who chased us out. Why did the king expel us? Does he want to be alone with Tianqing to settle the score? What do you mean by settling the score? The king wants to clean up the mess and kill Tianqing. Only Ji Tianqing and the king were left in the blood flame secret realm. At this moment, the monarch no longer concealed himself and revealed his true face. He sneered coldly. That's right. This monarch has always been secretly watching you, just to prevent this day from coming. As the saying goes, those who are not of the same race are not of the same mind. I have long guessed that you have evil intentions and want to harm the holy nation. The facts have proven that I have guessed correctly. Not only have you interfered in the fight for the throne, but you have also tried to steal the sacred tree. You have committed a heinous crime. Translator, Timothy_editor, Globeglotter. Chapter 3065. Ji Tianqing was already mentally prepared. When he was in Green Mountain City, he stole the mysterious light cave, destroyed the city lord's residence, and even helped Qi Tianlong become the city lord. Since then, the king had probably noticed him. Later, he killed Princess Tianfeng and destroyed the Blood Sword sect. The king must have known about this series of shocking events. When he came to the royal city, he was very close to the second prince and the third prince. He also fought the fifth prince to the death and even fought a big battle in West Wind Town. These news and inside stories couldn't be hidden from the king. Ji Tianqing guessed that with the king's wisdom and shrewdness, he would definitely be able to guess his motives. Sure enough, at the critical moment when he was fighting for the sacred tree, the king personally took action. Since you've told me the truth, then I have nothing to say. Ji Tianqing looked at the king indifferently and sneered. Which prince you want to pass the throne to is your business. I can't control it and I don't want to control it. I don't care about the wealth and status of the blood flame divine kingdom. Only this blood flame sacred tree can arouse my interest. I must have it. Haha. The king looked down at him and sneered arrogantly. I believe that with your talent and aptitude, you really don't care about anything else. You only want to snatch the sacred tree. But in the past 10,000 years, who knows how many upper divine lords have tried to snatch the sacred tree. In the end they all failed and even died on the spot. You are no exception. Today is the day of your death. Ji Tianqing temporarily ignored the sacred tree and pointed the burial of heaven sword at the king. He shouted coldly, "Then why are you still talking nonsense? Bring it on." "Oh, are you so eager to die?" The monarch raised his eyebrows and the corners of his mouth curled into a mocking sneer. I am a person who cherishes talent. Otherwise, I wouldn't have turned a deaf ear to your heinous crimes. You have outstanding talent and aptitude, and the divine kingdom is in need of talents. As long as you are willing to surrender and be loyal to me, then this monarch will consider giving you a way out. How about it? Haha. Do you think that's possible? Ji Tianqing sneered. The monarch frowned and said, although I was mentally prepared, I'm still very disappointed to hear your answer. Ji Tianqing still sneered and asked, aren't you going to abdicate and support the fifth prince? From what you've said, it seems that you're ambitious and want to do something big. The king asked him to pledge his loyalty and said that the god nation was in need of people. This made Ji Tianqing realize that things were not as simple as they seemed. As expected, the monarch pondered for a moment before saying in a deep voice, there's only you and me in the mystic realm, so there's no harm in me telling you the truth. This monarch has always been a man of great talent and bold vision, with the world in mind. It's just that you're new here and don't know much about it. Moreover, this monarch is in his prime right now. It is the best time to expand my territory. The three princes are still too young and immature to take on great responsibilities. How can I be at ease to hand the god nation over to them? Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and said with a playful smile, now that the great Yin Empire is peaceful and there are no wars between the various god nations, how can you have the chance to expand your territory? Prince Lien has some conspiracy or motive to deliberately create conflicts between the god nations. If I'm not wrong, he must have promised you some benefits that moved your heart. Only by cooperating with him can you have the chance to succeed and expand your territory. However, Prince Lien also has a condition, which is for you to make the fifth prince the crown prince. You don't want to abdicate for the time being, so you agree to his condition, right? After listening to Ji Tianqing's speculation, the monarch frowned and narrowed his eyes, which flashed with a cold light. Brat, what method did you use to investigate this monarch's secret? Without a doubt, Ji Tianqing's speculation was right. The monarch thought that he was keeping it a secret, and almost no one knew about it. However, Ji Tianqing said it with certainty as if he had seen it with his own eyes. He really couldn't understand how the news was leaked. What method did Ji Tianqing use to find out his secret? Haha, it seems like I guessed correctly. Ji Tianqing's smile became more playful as he explained, "You don't have to worry, I didn't investigate this matter. After all, I have no foundation in the Bloodfire God nation, so how can I investigate your secret? I just made a bold guess based on my wisdom and instinct." After pausing for a moment, he asked again, "Anyway, if I don't swear allegiance to you, I will be killed by you here. Why don't you be more magnanimous and tell me the truth and the answer? You and Prince Lien are working together in secret. I understand that you are doing this for your own benefit. However, Prince Lien and the fifth prince have a huge difference in status. How did you reach an agreement?" The monarch frowned and said coldly, "Although I like smart people, I really hate smart and unruly people like you." Ha ha ha. Ji Tianqing looked up and laughed. "You think I hate you because you don't have the confidence to subdue me. As a monarch, can't you be more domineering and magnanimous? Without the confidence and domineering of a monarch, how can you achieve great things? Tell me the answer and at least we can have a clear fight, how about it?" The monarch hesitated for a moment, then said, "Okay. I will be merciful this time and let you die with a clear understanding. The fifth prince's mother has a twin sister, known as Goddess Qiling. She is as beautiful as a fairy and has outstanding talent. She is a rare beauty that only appears once in 1,000 years. Goddess Qiling is the fifth prince's aunt. Many years ago, she entered the He-Tian sect and became the chief disciple. Prince Lien has also cultivated in the He-Tian sect for many years. He and Goddess Qiling fell in love and became husband and wife. Now do you understand?" Ji Tianqing suddenly understood and quickly nodded. Between the two of them, it is not a transaction of interest but a bond of kinship. So that's how it is. Prince Lien supports the fifth prince because he cares about kinship and wants to cultivate his nephew. But on the other hand, he wants to push the fifth prince to the throne and inherit the throne of the Bloodflame Divine Kingdom. When the time comes, the fifth prince will be Prince Lien's puppet and the Bloodflame Divine Kingdom will be Prince Lien's henchman. Haha. The monarch's face was cold and he sneered, "Don't make it sound so bad. Although the fifth prince is useless, I am still on the throne. How can I let the Bloodflame Divine Kingdom become a puppet?" Ji Tianqing said with a playful smile, "That is hard to say. You and Prince Lien are in a cooperative relationship, but you are also competing with each other. It is not certain who will have the last laugh. At least for now, I am more optimistic about Prince Lien." The monarch's face darkened and his eyes flashed with a cold light. He shouted angrily, "Enough. My patience is limited. I have already revealed the top secret to you. Now you have to make the final choice. Will you resist or pledge your loyalty to me?" Mobile version update website M. Chapter 3066. You want me to be loyal to you? You're not worthy. Ji Tianqing's reply was concise and powerful. The monarch's patience was completely exhausted, and his anger had reached its peak. His eyes spewed blood and fire as he roared, "Since that's the case, then die." As his voice fell, he waved his palms and executed an ultimate technique. He struck out in a mysterious trajectory and formed an incomparably marvelous palm print. Swish, 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 swish. The blood flames and divine power from all directions crazily gathered in front of him and condensed into a blood-colored ball of light the size of a mountain. Extreme shadow conquers the heavens. The monarch let out a furious roar and struck out with both palms at full force, aiming at Ji Tianqing from above. The mountain-sized blood-red ball of light whizzed down like a scorching sun. The ball of light was condensed and contained enough power to destroy the heavens and earth. After witnessing this ultimate technique, Ji Tianqing was even more certain that the monarch was also an 8th-level divine monarch. However, the monarch was at the peak of the 8th level, and was only one step away from breaking through to the 9th level. Facing such an expert in the Bloodflame secret realm, the outcome of the battle was still unknown. Ji Tianqing could only go all out and use his Sword of Burial of Heaven to execute an ultimate technique of the Sword Dao. Sword of Daytime. He held the sword with both hands and seemed to stab out slowly, but he poured all of his power into the divine sword. Suddenly, a dazzling golden ball of light burst out from the divine sword and blasted toward the blood-colored ball of light. When the golden ball of light first appeared, it was only 1,000 feet in radius. It didn't fly far before it expanded to 1,000 feet in radius. When it collided with the blood-colored ball of light, it had expanded to a radius of 3,000 feet. The next moment, a blood-colored sun and a golden sun clashed fiercely in the sky. Boom! Crack! An earth-shattering sound burst out and spread throughout the entire Bloodflame secret realm, echoing for tens of thousands of miles. The two blazing suns collapsed at the same time, shattering into billions of divine light fragments that burst out in all directions. However, the golden fragments danced in the air and condensed into tens of thousands of sword lights, forming a sword array that was 2,000 miles in radius. As for the crimson divine light that filled the sky, it turned into tens of thousands of divine shadows that besieged Ji Tianqing. Each of the godly spirit phantoms was 1,000 feet tall, but they all had different appearances. Some were sacred and dignified, some were evil, some had 3 heads and 6 arms, and some had a ferocious and terrifying appearance. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing controlled the 10,000 swords formation in time, and blocked the attacks of the god spirit's phantoms. Pung pung pung. The sword light collided with the god's shadow, causing it to shatter and explode. A series of muffled sounds could be heard. Ji Tianqing and the monarch looked at each other with a hint of surprise on their faces. The two of them didn't expect that the other's ultimate skill also had a hidden move and variation. Generally speaking, the two of them had basically the same train of thought, and the nature of their ultimate skills were also very similar. The only difference was the way it was presented. The muffled sound lasted for a long time before the divine phantom, and the sword array dissipated. The two of them were evenly matched, and neither of them had the upper hand. The monarch made the first move and hurriedly absorbed the power of the Bloodflame sacred tree, forming 9 fire dragons that were thousands of feet long and pouring down on Ji Tianqing. Dragon Blood Wrath. The 9 lifelike blood dragons all bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they attacked Ji Tianqing in a ferocious manner. The power was astonishing. Ji Tianqing didn't dodge. He activated the Heaven-Mending Pearl to release a white light vortex in front of him. Swoosh! The 9 blood-flame divine dragons rushed down and were all swallowed by the white light vortex, disappearing instantly. The monarch was immediately stunned, and a deep shock flashed across his eyes. Bastard! What kind of ultimate skill is that? It can actually swallow my ultimate skill? The power of that ultimate skill just now was enough to destroy 100,000 miles of land. How could he swallow it so easily? No. With his strength, it's impossible for him to swallow it so easily. He must have borrowed the power of the divine artifact. Taking advantage of the monarch's shock, Ji Tianqing swung his sword again and used his ultimate skill, Milky Way Break. For countless years, he had been cultivating the Milky Way body tempering art and tempering his body tens of millions of times before he had the domineering strength he had today. Milky Way Break was the ultimate skill that he had created after comprehending the divine Tao laws when he was cultivating in the Milky Way. The Burial of Heaven swung his sword and slashed out a sacred light sword that was hundreds of miles long. Furthermore, the sacred giant sword drew upon the power of the stars in outer space and became flashing with silver light. It was extremely sharp. The sword slashed down as if it was going to cut through the night sky and cut off the Milky Way. The monarch sensed the terrifying power of the sword light, and his expression changed as he hurriedly retreated. While dodging, he didn't forget to use his ultimate skill to control the Bloodflame sacred tree. and the 10 divine blood altars to help him block the sword light. However, one of the divine blood altars had already been destroyed by Ji Tianxing. In the previous battle, 2 more divine blood altars had been destroyed, causing the power of the divine array to be greatly weakened. When the starry sword slashed in front of him, the monarch barely managed to form a blood-red barrier in front of him. Boom! Crack! Another thunderous boom erupted, shaking everything within a 15,000-mile radius, and causing the entire secret realm to tremble. Amidst the loud boom, the seemingly solid blood-red barrier was split into pieces. The violent and unparalleled power sent the monarch flying. He drew an arc in the night sky, then fell 100 miles away in a sorry state. Plop! He smashed a 1,000-foot-deep crater into the cold and hard black stone ground, causing dirt and rocks to fly into the air. When the monarch flew out of the crater, he looked even more wretched. His golden robe was dyed with purple blood, and his messy hair covered his face. Blood also seeped out of the corner of his mouth. Clearly, the Milky Way break earlier had already injured him. Before the monarch could circulate his energy to suppress his injuries, Ji Tianxing didn't show any mercy and charged over ferociously again. 5-colored divine lightning. He sent out a 5-colored pillar of lightning from his left palm. It was like a 1,000-foot-long blade of light that slashed toward the monarch. He waved the sword of burial of heaven with his right hand and used God slaying to stab at the monarch's head. Under the 2 attacks, the monarch was under great pressure and even sensed that he was about to die. His expression was solemn as he forced himself to endure his injuries. He hurriedly took out a square golden dragon seal and smashed it toward Ji Tianxing. That dazzling golden seal was the dragon seal of the monarch. It represented the highest authority in the Bloodfire divine nation, and gathered the devout faith of billions of gods. This item was indeed extraordinary. It instantly became the size of a mountain and shattered the 5-colored divine lightning. Boom! Crack! Amidst the earth-shattering explosion, the 5-colored divine lightning shattered and sprinkled down billions of beams of 5-colored divine light. The power of Dragon Seal was also weakened, and the golden light dimmed. Then the god-slaying sword struck Dragon Seal with a loud boom. Longxi was sent flying away, tumbling for 300 miles away. The monarch was sent flying again by the terrifying power. His face was even paler as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His injuries were even more severe, but he didn't feel any pain. All he felt was endless humiliation and shock. How can this kid's strength be so strong? Even I'm no match for him? He's grown so much in just a few months? I was too careless. I should have eliminated him long ago. How could I let him enter the royal city and the Bloodfire secret realm? At this moment, the monarch really regretted it. Chapter 3067. The monarch was high and mighty, looking down on the 1 billion citizens of the divine nation. In the past, Ji Tianxing was just a useful talent that could be molded. He had never thought that Ji Tianxing could grow to such a level. Moreover, he had grown so quickly in such a short time. This was unprecedented. The monarch couldn't help but imagine that if he hadn't let Ji Tianxing enter the Blood Flame secret realm, things wouldn't have been so troublesome. Unfortunately, it was too late to regret now. He could only try to fix it. Whoosh! The monarch retreated as he sent out a golden light with his palm, sending out an order. Through the array of the Blood Flame secret realm, the order flew out of the secret realm and into the Soul-Praying Palace. In a short while, the experts in the Soul-Praying Palace all passed through the Blood Flame Gate and stepped into the Blood Flame secret realm. Whoosh! 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 A group of more than 60 people flew into the secret realm. They cut through the night sky and headed straight for the Blood Flame sacred tree in the middle. The leader was a withered old man whose entire body was shrunk in a black robe. He was the commander of the Dark Moon, the monarch's most loyal confidant, and the former commander of the palace guards. Following closely behind him were 8 commanders in purple robes with blood phoenixes embroidered on their collars. They were all middle-level divine lords. The 50 people behind them were the elite experts guarding the Soul-Praying Palace. They were either captains of the Imperial Guards or hidden sentries. They were all low-level divine lords. In short, These 65 people were all Divine Lord experts and were absolutely loyal to the monarch. After entering the secret realm, the Dark Moon Commander and the 8 purple-robed commanders knew that the monarch was going to deal with Ji Tianqing. In their eyes, Ji Tianqing wasn't worthy of being the monarch's opponent. Especially in the Blood Flame secret realm, the monarch could control the power of the secret realm. It was normal for him to kill Ji Tianqing instantly. Their mission was to protect the Blood Flame sacred tree from being affected by the battle. Therefore, after entering the secret realm, they headed straight for the sacred tree in the middle. However, when they flew through the night sky, they found that the secret realm was in a mess. Several divine blood altars in the outer ring had been destroyed by the shockwaves of the battle. Most of them had collapsed and countless cracks had appeared. The Blood Flame sacred tree in the center of the secret realm also became crooked. The ball of blood flame hanging in the night sky was also very dim and weak. Seeing this scene, the Dark Moon Commander's gaze became even more gloomy, and he sped up to fly toward the sacred tree. The 8 commanders and many elite experts also sped up to catch up. Swish! Swish! Soon they arrived at the 3rd divine blood altar, which was only a few thousand miles away from the sacred tree. Only then did the crowd realize that the divine blood altar in the middle had collapsed. The towering sacred tree also fell to the ground, exposing billions of roots. Thousands of miles away in the night sky, Ji Tianqing was fighting fiercely with the monarch. Deafening noises could be heard continuously, and divine light filled the sky. What made the crowd even more shocked was that the monarch was not Ji Tianqing's match. He was being suppressed by Ji Tianqing and could only retreat as he fought. He did not dare to face him head-on. Moreover, his dragon robe was tattered, and his crown had long been shattered. His face was covered in blood. He looked very pathetic and miserable. Seeing this, the Dark Moon Commander was filled with murderous intent. He roared in a hoarse voice, "Protect the monarch! Quickly protect the monarch!" The 8 commanders and many elite experts panicked and rushed over without caring about anything else. They besieged Ji Tianqing and tried their best to save the monarch. Ji Tianqing was surrounded by many experts and had to give up chasing the monarch. He fought and retreated far away. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the Dark Moon Commander quickly rescued the monarch and retreated to the side. The 8 captains and 56 elite experts immediately formed an encirclement of 1,000 miles, encircling Ji Tianqing. The Dark Moon Commander supported the monarch and stood outside the encirclement. He did not have time to curse Ji Tianqing. He quickly checked the monarch's injuries and anxiously inquired about the situation. "Your Majesty, how can that traitor be so vicious to injure you like this? Your kindness to him is as heavy as the sea, and you secretly took care of him. He is so cruel and unscrupulous to fight against you. He is really vicious." The Dark Moon Commander was very smart. He did not ask why the monarch was beaten like this and why he could not defeat Ji Tianqing. He only mentioned that the monarch was indebted to Ji Tianqing, and Ji Tianqing repaid kindness with enmity. After hearing this, the monarch felt much better. After taking 2 divine pills and circulating his energy to suppress his injuries, he gasped and said, "I am fine. Old dog, you don't have to worry. That traitor is a poisonous snake. No matter how much I take care of him, he will bite his master in the end. Old dog, you came in time. I will leave this place to you. Capture him for me. You must capture him alive." The Dark Moon Commander quickly nodded and said with hatred, "That traitor committed such a heinous crime. Wouldn't it be too easy to kill him with a sword? We must capture him alive and put him in the Bloody Flame prison. He will be tortured for thousands of years as a warning to others." He did not dare to say that this was to vent the monarch's hatred, so as not to make the monarch seek revenge for the smallest grievance. As the closest confidant of the monarch, he understood this harsh and merciless monarch the best. He also avoided the important matters and dwell on the trivial matters. The monarch was very satisfied and nodded, "Yes, we will do as you say." At this time, Ji Tianqing stood in the night sky with his sword. He ignored the surrounding imperial guards and looked at the monarch with a sneer. "Ha ha ha! The facts have proven that you, the monarch, are nothing more than this. You were beaten so miserably by me that you can only call for help. I have already said that the bloody flame divine kingdom is too small to accommodate a big Buddha like me. Now do you believe me?" These words provoked the monarch. His face turned green and white, and he was quite ashamed and resentful. The Dark Moon Commander quickly scolded with murderous intent, "Evil creature, don't be so arrogant. His Majesty loves his people like his children. When he attacked you, he was kind and left you some leeway. He hoped that you would realize your mistake and mend your ways. Who would have thought that you would be so cruel and vicious? You don't understand His Majesty's good intentions, and you are still complacent here. However, I will not be soft-hearted to you. I will let you know how powerful I am." After that, the Dark Moon Commander ordered and shouted, "The monarch has ordered that we keep him alive and capture him alive." The 8 commanders and 56 elites said in unison, "Yes, sir." Then they waved their swords and Kenshin soldiers, and used their ultimate skills to besiege Ji Tianqing. Swoosh! Swoosh! Boom! Boom! Hundreds of divine path secret skills, divine light illusions that covered the sky, and tens of thousands of sword shadows and swords suddenly covered a radius of a few thousand miles. Endless swords and swords poured down from the night sky like a torrent and were about to drown Ji Tianqing. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing no longer held back and used his ultimate skill decisively. Heaven Punishment Sword Formation. He waved the Burial of Heaven sword with all his strength and slashed out huge golden swords that filled the sky, forming a sword formation. This time the Heaven Punishment Sword formation that he used was more than 10 times stronger than before. The divine power consumed was also immeasurable. He did not have enough divine power, so he had to draw on the divine power stored in the Heaven Mending Pearl. Oh! Chapter 3068. Swoosh! 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 In the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of giant divine swords were formed. The giant swords danced in the sky and blocked the super skills of the experts. Rumble! A series of thunderous explosions reverberated in the night sky. Within 3 breaths, the super skills of the dozens of Sir God experts were blocked by the tens of thousands of sword radiances. Then the tens of thousands of giant swords intertwined and formed the Sky Punishment Sword Array. Swoosh! A golden sword formation with a circumference of 8,000 miles stood on the pitch-black and icy ground. Not only were more than 60 Sir God experts covered, but the commander of the Dark Moon and the monarch were also sealed in the sword array. Seeing this scene, the Dark Moon Great Commander's face was full of contempt, and he grinned coldly. "Haha! You are facing more than 60 Sir God experts alone. You are lucky that you are not killed instantly. You are not thinking about how to escape or kneel down and surrender. You are still using the sword array to resist till the end? You must be crazy." Not only was the commander of the Dark Moon full of contempt, but the dozens of experts also mocked and sneered. "You are alone and you dare to fight with so many experts? You are overestimating yourself. Each of us can cut you into pieces with one sword. Shameless thief, don't waste time. Kneel down and surrender." In everyone's eyes, Ji Tianqing was dreaming if he wanted to fight more than 60 Sir God experts with a sword array. Only the monarch had a serious expression on his face as he stared at Ji Tianqing with a gloomy expression. His eyes were filled with caution. He had fought with Ji Tianqing before and knew Ji Tianqing's real strength. Although he was not sure if Ji Tianqing could create another miracle, he was very uneasy. However, he felt very uneasy and had an ominous premonition. At this moment, Ji Tianqing glanced at the crowd indifferently and sneered, "A bunch of frogs in the well. Now I will show you what a supreme Kenshin is." As he spoke, he waved his left hand and activated the Sky Punishment Sword Array. Instantly, the 10,000 divine swords danced in the air, releasing an unparalleled divine might that could suppress the heavens and the earth. An invincible sword will that could annihilate everything also descended in an invisible manner, covering a radius of 8,000 miles. In that short moment, the heaven-destroying sword formation went all out and its power reached its peak. Puff, puff, puff. In the next instant, the expressions of more than 50 low-level divine lords changed drastically, blood spurting out of their noses and mouths. The supreme divine might and sword intent pressed down, shattering their internal organs and rupturing their meridians and blood vessels. None of them could stay in the sky, falling down like dumplings and smashing on the ground. In the blink of an eye, the number of powerhouses in the sky decreased by 70%. Ji Tianxing had not made a move yet. Just using the power of the sword formation, he severely injured over 30 lower divine lords. The remaining dozen or so lesser divine lords were still able to remain in the sky. However, his face was as pale as a sheet of paper. His body was bent like a shrimp, and his expression was one of extreme pain. Under such circumstances, even if they could still fight, how much of their strength could they use? Seeing this scene, the expressions of the Dark Moon Great Commander and the 8 commanders changed drastically. Their eyes were filled with dense shock. How is this possible? What kind of sword formation has such terrifying power? He did not even use a single sword, but he injured over 30 elite Imperial guards. No wonder His Majesty wants to get rid of him. This lad is so powerful, but he is an enemy of the kingdom of gods. He will definitely bring disaster to the world. No matter what, we have to kill him. We cannot let him leave the mystic realm alive. Otherwise, it will be a disaster for Monarch City. While everyone was exclaiming, they also made up their minds. No matter what price they had to pay, they had to get rid of Ji Tianxing. Otherwise, he would definitely start a shocking massacre in Monarch City. At the same time, the power of the 10,000 divine swords reached its peak and started to kill many divine lord powerhouses. Swish, swish, swish. The chaotic swords tore through the air and flew back and forth, forming countless golden hurricanes. Those heavily injured Imperial guards who had fallen to the ground would be smashed into pieces once they were swept up by the blade hurricanes. Loud noises could be heard continuously from the sword formation. Screams and wails could be heard everywhere. It didn't take long for more than 30 heavily injured Imperial Army elites to be reduced to smithereens. Even if they were wearing Monarch-level armor and had the protection of divine weapons, it was useless. The other dozen or so Imperial guards were also killed by the blade hurricanes. They were wailing in despair as they struggled to hold on. The armor and all kinds of defensive divine weapons they were wearing were extremely fragile under the attack of the sword radiance. Soon they were turned into scrap metal and debris. Immediately after, their divine bodies were also shattered, and blood rained down from the sky. Only the 8 commanders, the Dark Moon Commander, and the king could still withstand the attack of the sword radiance. However, they did not care about attacking Ji Tianxing. They surrounded the king and risked their lives to protect the king. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianxing held the sword of burial of heaven and charged toward the crowd with an imposing aura. Sky-breaking sword, 7 stars sword, broken moon, sun-shattering, dragon elephant divine fist. Chapter 3069. Most of the citizens only knew about the Bloody Flame Sacred Tree, and not the Blood Sea Pagoda. After all, this item was created way too early. Its power was shocking and almost reached the limit of a monarch-grade artifact. However, the Bloody Flame Kingdom had been peaceful for the past 10,000 years. There were no major wars or crises. As a result, the Blood Sea Pagoda was covered in dust and rarely used. Even many members of the royal family had only heard of this artifact but had never seen it with their own eyes. Now Ji Tianxing had caused a ruckus in the secret land. The Bloody Flame Sacred Tree had been overturned and was about to be taken away by him. The foundation of the Bloody Flame Kingdom had been shaken and was on the verge of collapse. The monarch naturally had to use the Blood Sea Pagoda to end the situation. Taking advantage of the fact that Ji Tianxing was besieged by the Dark Moon and a few commanders, the monarch activated the Blood Sea Pagoda and used its ultimate skill. Swoosh! Swoosh! The 5-foot-long blood-red tree branch emitted a blood-red light that covered the sky and earth. Suddenly, blood waves rolled in between the heavens and the earth. In just 3 breaths, the blood waves reached a height of 10,000 feet and covered a radius of 8,000 miles, filling the entire divine array. The raging waves carried the power to burn mountains and boil seas. They were unstoppable as they blasted toward Ji Tianxing. Of course, the Dark Moon and a few commanders were also within the range of the blood waves. They were all heavily injured. Their bodies were dripping with blood, and their flesh was badly mangled. After fighting with Ji Tianqing for so long, his eyes had long since turned bloodshot, and he had gone crazy from the bloodthirst. They would rather die in battle than take a step back. They could not let Ji Tianqing leave the secret land. Therefore, when they saw the monstrous waves of blood, they did not feel fear or dread. They had no intention of retreating. Instead, they attacked Ji Tianqing even more ferociously. Even if they had to die, they had to hold him back and not let him escape the blood waves. Damned beast, there's nowhere for you to run now. Your time is up. You can't bring disaster to the Bloody Flame Kingdom anymore. The divine array of the Bloody Flame Kingdom has been activated. Why aren't you dead yet? Ji Tianqing fended off the frenzied attacks of the crowd, while looking at the monarch who was at the edge of the formation a few thousand miles away. When he saw the monarch holding a crystal-clear blood-red branch that was crazily sprinkling blood light, his gaze immediately locked onto the branch. Such a powerful divine weapon? Its aura is exactly the same as that of the blood flame sacred tree. It's most likely made from the branches of the sacred tree. Ji Tianqing could feel the power of the Blood Sea Pagoda, and his expression turned grave. He instantly analyzed the result. With his own strength, it would be very difficult for him to resist the power of the Blood Sea Pagoda. Even if he could block it, he would still be injured. The monarch and the Dark Moon commander would be able to find an opportunity to deal with him. Thus, he decisively took out the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes Pagoda to block the monstrous waves of blood. Shwa! A black light flashed. A mysterious ancient pagoda that was 10,000 feet tall appeared out of thin air, towering in the sky. Ji Tianqing's figure had already disappeared. He had already entered the divine pagoda. An overwhelming wave of blood instantly engulfed the mysterious black tower. Bam! A deafening sound exploded, reverberating throughout the heaven-destroying sword formation. However, there was a thick layer of black light on the surface of the divine pagoda, firmly blocking the impact of the monstrous waves of blood. The divine pagoda was undamaged, standing motionlessly in the sea of blood. Ji Tianqing was also unharmed. He stayed in the origin divine formation on the 5th level of the divine pagoda, calmly meditating to recover the divine power he had expended. As for the Dark Moon commanders, they were not as lucky as him. They were instantly killed. Bam! 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 With a series of explosions, the purple-robed commanders exploded on the spot, their divine bodies smashed into pieces. Only their divine cores managed to escape, but they were also heavily injured. They floated up and down in the sea of blood, dizzy and confused. The Dark Moon commander was even more powerful, so he was already prepared for the impact of the Blood Sea Pagoda. When the monstrous waves of blood came crashing down, he used all his strength to block them and managed to escape death. His divine body was protected, but it was also covered in cracks and blood spurted out. His loose black robe was already in tatters, unable to cover his hunched and withered body. Cough, cough. He was like a blurry mass of flesh and blood floating in the sea of blood, coughing violently and gasping for breath. Even if that little bastard doesn't die from the impact of the Blood Sea Pagoda, he should be heavily injured, right? This thought flashed through the Dark Moon commander's mind as his mind cleared up a little. He turned his head and looked around, searching for Ji Tianqing's figure in the sea of blood. However, he did not find Ji Tianqing. Instead, he saw the divine pagoda not far away. His body trembled, and his expression froze, revealing an extremely sorrowful and indignant expression. Ah, damn it! Why is it like this? He still has a trump card up his sleeve after fighting for so long? He actually used this black pagoda to block the impact of the blood waves? The Dark Moon commander could not accept this result and roared angrily. The monarch's expression was also ugly, and his eyes were as cold as ice. Chapter 30-70. Hearing the shout of the Dark Moon Great Commander, the monarch was stunned. What the hell? I'm furious and filled with murderous intent. I can't wait to tear Ji Tianqing into pieces. You old dog, I can understand you crying for help. But what do you mean by crying for mercy? With these thoughts flashing through his mind, the king stopped waving the Blood Sea pagoda and stared at the middle of the Blood Sea. Only then did he calm down and see the Dark Moon Commander's situation clearly. Embarrassment flashed through his eyes. Oh no, I forgot about them. That kid hid in the Divine Pagoda and didn't come out, but they suffered. Don't tell me that those Imperial Army commanders were killed by this monarch? Fortunately, I stopped in time, or else I would have killed the old dog too. Thinking of this, the king secretly rejoiced and suppressed his embarrassment. It's nothing to kill a few commanders. I'll just take it that they sacrificed themselves for the kingdom of God. I'll remember their sacrifice. However, if I kill the old dog too, it'll seem like I'm too muddle-headed. After thinking clearly, the king hurriedly waved his hand and shot out a 5-colored divine light toward the Dark Moon Commander's divinity. Come back quickly, I need to focus on dealing with that bastard. The king planned to rescue the Dark Moon Great Commander and settle him in the divine artifact space. Unexpectedly, Ji Tianqing, who had been hiding in the Divine Pagoda, had been staring at the Blood Sea. Seeing that the king wanted to save the Dark Moon, he hurriedly flew out of the Divine Pagoda and appeared in the Blood Sea. Sky-splitting sword. His whole body was glowing with golden light, resisting the corrosion and impact of the Blood Sea. He held the burial of heaven with both hands and slashed fiercely. The giant golden sword, which was more than 3,000 meters long, broke through the blood waves and struck the Dark Moon Great Commander's godhead with an earth-shattering momentum. The pitiful Dark Moon Commander was just about to be saved, but in the blink of an eye, he was hit by the giant sword and his divinity exploded into pieces on the spot. Crack! The broken pieces of the divinity scattered in the Blood Sea. The Dark Moon Commander was dead and completely fallen. The king's 5-colored divine light struck nothing but air. Hearing that crisp sound, the king's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes instantly turned red. Ah, Tianqing! You despicable dog thief, I swear I'll tear you to shreds. The monarch was once again infuriated. He glared at Ji Tianqing with fire in his eyes and roared at the top of his lungs. Ji Tianqing gave him a contemptuous smile, turned around and entered the Divine Pagoda, not giving him a chance to make a move. The monarch was so angry that his face turned green and he almost went berserk. In the sea of blood, only he and Ji Tianqing were left. Now he no longer had any misgivings. He brandished the Blood Sea Pagoda at all costs, urging the boundless waves of blood to bombard the Divine Pagoda. Bang! Bang bang! Another loud explosion erupted, shaking the heavens and the earth. The Divine Pagoda was as stable as Mount Tai. On the other hand, the heaven-destroying sword formation continued to bear the brunt of the boundless blood waves, and its power continued to dissipate. Finally, after 100 breaths of time, the heaven-destroying sword formation could not be replenished with divine power and collapsed on the spot. Wow! Hua hua! The golden light sword formation with a circumference of 8,000 miles was torn to shreds and fell apart. Tens of thousands of giant swords shattered in the sea of blood. The divine power and sword essence that suppressed the heavens and the earth also quickly dissipated. The boundless sea of blood had lost its restraints and nothing could imprison it. It immediately expanded in all directions. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, the sea of blood expanded from 8,000 miles to 20,000 miles. After a few more breaths, the sea of blood expanded to more than 30,000 miles, filling the entire blood flame secret realm. Tens of thousands of miles of wasteland, the 7 broken pieces of the divine blood altar, and the crooked blood flame sacred tree were all submerged by the boundless sea of blood. However, the blood flame sacred tree and the Blood Sea Pagoda were of the same origin, and would not be destroyed by the waves of blood. Instead, the two resonated and their powers complemented each other, making the Blood Sea Pagoda even more powerful. This caused the boundless sea of blood that filled the blood flame's secret realm to become even more violent and destructive. The monarch stood at the top of the sea of blood and constantly waved his crystal-clear blood jade-like tree branches, urging the boundless sea of blood to continuously attack the divine tower. He had made up his mind to crush the divine tower so that Ji Tianqing would have nowhere to hide and turn into a skeleton in the sea of blood. Boom! Boom boom boom! One after another, Earth-shattering noises exploded in the secret realm. Unfortunately, no matter how violent the boundless sea of blood was, it could not shake the divine tower. The monarch's expression became uglier and uglier. Gradually, doubt and anxiety appeared in his gloomy eyes. I don't believe that there is a divine artifact that can block the attacks of the sacred tree and the Blood Sea Pagoda. In his opinion, the sacred tree was a quasi-king level divine artifact, and the Blood Sea Pagoda was a supreme-grade divine artifact. Under the divine king realm, these two treasures could be said to be invincible and indestructible. No matter how powerful Ji Tianqing was, he was only a wandering genius. Without the support of a superpower, it was impossible for him to have a king-level divine artifact. Therefore, the divine tower must be destroyed. However, as time passed, the monarch continued to attack for an hour and still could not break the defense of the divine tower, let alone destroy it. He muttered in his heart and became more and more doubtful and unconfident. What kind of treasure is that black tower? How can it block the attacks of the Blood Sea Pagoda and the sacred tree? It has been an hour and I have consumed 40% of my divine power. Why is there still no effect? How can this be? The power of the Blood Sea Pagoda has not weakened. Could it be that the Black Tower is also a supreme-grade divine artifact? It should be impossible, right? I don't feel that the divine tower is releasing the aura of a supreme-grade divine artifact. The monarch became more and more irritable and unconfident. The divine tower was safe and sound, but the blood flame secret realm could not bear the burden. After being attacked by the boundless sea of blood for an hour, the space barrier of the blood flame secret realm began to loosen and collapse. Many cracks appeared. For example, there was a pitch-black space crack in the southeast corner of the secret realm that formed a hole. The surging waves of blood and divine fire frantically poured into the crack and leaked into the pitch-black void. Similar space cracks and holes appeared in several places in the secret realm. As for the fine cracks that could not be seen, they were still increasing. However, the monarch only wanted to destroy the divine tower and kill Ji Tianqing, so he did not notice this detail. At the same time, Ji Tianqing had been meditating in the distorted space of the divine tower for 2 days, and had recovered 90% of his strength. He returned to the 5th floor and stood in the origin divine formation. He extended his divine sense to observe the situation of the blood flame secret realm. He discovered that the space of the secret realm was unstable, and that cracks and holes had appeared. He immediately revealed a playful smile. Ha ha ha, that tree branch is so powerful. Don't blame me for borrowing your strength and playing something exciting with you. As he spoke, he formed hand seals with both hands and sent countless divine lights into the origin divine formation. Soon he activated the origin divine formation, and activated the power of the 9 heavens 10 absolutes pagoda. Wang! The divine tower emitted boundless golden light and released a destructive golden torrent that spread in all directions and fiercely attacked the boundless sea of blood. Chapter 3071. Ha ha ha. Little B** starred, you finally can't help but fight back? If you can't hold it in anymore, it means that my chance is here. Seeing the golden light released by the divine pagoda, the king was immediately energized. As he laughed, he waved the Blood Sea Pagoda with all his might and attacked the divine pagoda. Previously, Ji Tianqing had been hiding in the divine pagoda. Other than attacking the Dark Moon Commander, he hadn't done anything for an hour. This made the monarch feel uncertain. He couldn't figure out the details of the divine pagoda, and couldn't see through Ji Tianqing's real situation. But it was different now. Ji Tianqing fought back, which meant that he felt the danger and had to struggle. The king's confidence doubled, and he attacked with all his might without holding back. Boom! Kaboom! The golden light released by the divine pagoda collided with the boundless blood waves, creating a loud noise that shook the 9 heavens. In just a few seconds, the two forces crazily clashed more than 3,000 times. Jiutian Tenju Pagoda was a king-level divine artifact with unparalleled power, but it wasn't Ji Tianqing's life divine artifact, so it couldn't unleash its true power. He could only use less than 20% of its power to fight the Blood Sea Pagoda to a draw, and he was on par with the king. The boundless blood sea was still turbulent, and the divine pagoda didn't move. No one gained an advantage, so of course there was no loss. However, this made the king even more convinced that Ji Tianqing was at his wits' end. As long as Ji Tianqing couldn't defeat him, he could use the sacred tree and the blood sea pagoda to kill Ji Tianqing here. However, just as he was filled with complacency and anticipation, he heard a cracking sound. The crisp cracking sound suddenly came, and the king's body stiffened and he woke up on the spot. He turned his head subconsciously and saw a scene that he would never forget for the rest of his life. He saw that the edge of the blood flame secret realm had a few cracks that were thousands of feet long. Boundless blood waves and divine flames crazily poured into the cracks and surged into the dark void. 1, 2, 3. A total of 8 cracks were distributed around the secret realm. Moreover, those gaps were still expanding and spreading rapidly. The blood sea's power was quickly draining away, and the blood flame secret realm was shaking violently as if a super earthquake had occurred. A loud rumbling sound came from under their feet, and the pitch-black wasteland began to collapse. The monarch was dumbfounded. He widened his eyes in shock and exclaimed, The arcane realm is about to collapse?" The blood flame secret realm was built by the first monarch with great effort. In the eyes of the monarch, this mystic realm that had been passed down for 10,000 years was indestructible, like a small world. He had never thought that there would be a day when the secret realm would shatter. The impact was too great, causing him to be unable to regain his senses for a moment, and he was stunned on the spot as he muttered to himself, "How could this be? The mystic realm was an alternate dimension, so how could it collapse? No matter how powerful the Blood Sea Pagoda was, it couldn't possibly destroy the entire secret realm. It's over. If the mystic realm that has been passed down for 10,000 years is destroyed, then I will be the sinner of Scandinavia." The monarch was shocked and furious. He no longer cared about attacking Ji Tianqing. He hurriedly used the law of space in an attempt to repair the gap in the secret realm. However, there were too many gaps in the mystic realm. In all directions above his head, below his feet, there were gaps and cracks everywhere, and they were all expanding and spreading rapidly. No matter how strong the monarch was, it was impossible for him to repair those gaps quickly. Moreover, Ji Tianqing was still controlling the divine pagoda to release an even more violent golden light, bombarding the edge of the mystic realm. Boom, boom, boom. Kacha! Kacha, kacha! In the blink of an eye, there were a few more holes in the mystic realm. The monarch was in complete despair. Buffed in a fit of anger, he raised his head and spat out a mouthful of blood, causing his long hair to fall over his face. "Ah, you despicable bastard! I will not live under the same sky as you." The monarch roared into the sky, his voice filled with grief and anger, and it was filled with shocking killing intent. His eyes turned dark red with blood, and his body burst out with bloody flames. He went berserk. "Kill! I will kill you!" He rushed towards the divine pagoda, holding the Blood Sea Pagoda with both hands. He used it as a sword and slashed at the divine pagoda. Bam, bam, bam! The bloody blades slashed at the divine pagoda, causing a series of muffled sounds. However, the bloody blades collapsed one after another, while the divine pagoda remained unscathed. Ji Tianqing controlled the divine pagoda to release a few torrents of golden light, which bombarded the monarch. Puffed! The monarch was sent flying thousands of miles away, blood spurting out of his nose and mouth. At this time, the entire mystic realm was already half damaged, and it was on the verge of collapse. The mystic realm was about to be destroyed, and the formation imprisoning the blood flame sacred tree had already fallen apart. At this time, the blood flame sacred tree was also tilted in the sea of blood, like a rootless duckweed. As the mystic realm shook violently, the sea of blood surged, and the sacred tree also swayed unsteadily. Ji Tianqing hurriedly controlled the divine pagoda to fly near the sacred tree. He then activated the heaven-mending orb, which released endless white light, forming a vortex with a radius of 10,000 feet. Whoosh! The dazzling white vortex slowly enveloped the blood flame sacred tree, erupting with a power that could devour everything. The blood flame sacred tree had no intelligence, so of course it would not struggle or escape. Soon it was swallowed by the white vortex and entered the heaven-mending orb bit by bit. Thousands of miles away, the monarch had just stabilized his body and was circulating his energy to suppress his injuries. Before he could take a divine pill, he saw the blood flame sacred tree being enveloped by the white vortex and disappearing bit by bit. Seeing this, the monarch was so angry that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and he rushed over angrily. "Bastard! Don't you dare! Even if I have to die with you, I won't let you go." The blood flame mystic realm was about to collapse, and if the sacred tree was snatched away by Ji Tianqing, the blood flame kingdom would be finished. If they lost these two national treasures, the blood flame kingdom would lose face, and their prestige would plummet. Secondly, without these two treasures to nurture talents for the blood flame kingdom, the kingdom's strength would soon weaken. Of course, as the monarch, he would also have to bear the infamy of being muddle-headed and incompetent. Thinking of these consequences, the monarch stopped Ji Tianqing at all costs. Even if he died here, it was better than being spurned by billions of people. However, Ji Tianqing focused on controlling the heaven-mending orb to speed up the absorption of the sacred tree. The divine pagoda stood between him and the monarch, releasing a destructive golden torrent that swept toward the monarch. Of course, the divine pagoda would not automatically attack. The one controlling the divine pagoda was the owner of the divine pagoda, Ji Ku. Just now Ji Tianqing woke her up and asked her for help. Although she had just broken through to the divine sovereign realm, her strength could not be compared to the monarch's. However, she could control the divine pagoda and use 20% of its power, which was enough to stop the monarch. Bang! 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 Several streaks of golden light hit the monarch and sent him flying again. After a few breaths of time, when he adjusted his state and attacked again, the entire blood flame sacred tree had disappeared. Ji Tianqing stored the blood flame sacred tree in the heaven-mending orb and temporarily placed it in the five elements world. At the same time, the blood flame mystic realm finally collapsed and completely collapsed. Mobile version update website. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.